Not how my wife was singing it. Not really quite that joyously. I want to go over with you as we wait for Billy Gill and Stugotz to come in from God Bless Football. A handful of things that I learned yesterday watching football, and I want you guys to tell me which of these you knew and which you find most interesting. I did not know until yesterday that Eddie Pinheiro is the most accurate kicker in league history. I don't think a single one of those was important, even the ones that won games. Not unless he played on the Jake Delhomme teams or the Cam Newton MVP team, and I don't know about it. So the most accurate kicker in NFL history has kicked a bunch of accurate kicks no one remembers. Speaking of kickers, I did not before yesterday know that Sly, the Patriots kicker, who ended that game with a 68-yard attempt that was a yard short, has 5 misses this year inside of 30 yards. 5. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. What the hell's going on with Justin Tucker?
That's the only reason. That's the only reason Pinheiro is now the most accurate kicker, is because Justin Tucker has missed enough this year to make his percentage fall lower to closer to 89%.
You know what I think it is? He did a commercial for Craven where he's like the star. It's got Harbaugh in it. It's got Lamar Jackson, and they're all in awe of Justin Tucker. It got to his head. It's just like you can't be doing commercials as a kicker.
The Will Levis commercial for mayonnaise looks less great when you're down 28-0, and you've got guys on your team doing sack dances down 28-0, which I'm not the joy police, but we can agree. Down 28-0, you got to mute the sack dance. No, just you got to. I mean, sacks are hard to get, but you're down 28-0. Do I have this wrong?
I'm with you. I think inside 14 points, you can do sack dances. Once it's past, well, and you know what? 2 possessions. Once it's past 16 points. No more sack dances. That's my rule. Inside 2 possessions, we can still sack dance.
That's a good rule there. But I do feel like the joy police on this stuff. You guys say how many teams have done the flag planting fight thing? How many times has this now happened as we chronicle the dangers of, kids over celebrating on the opposing field? It seems to me a natural escalation that if you're going to make all of the war analogies and going to do all the stuff about we protect our house and stuff, that when somebody symbolically tries to flag plant on your field, that there's going to end up being some fighting involved. Like that seems like a natural escalation of everything we're doing out there.
There were 22 teams involved in fights. I believe there were 3 flag plants, 1 pitchfork plant, and then Iowa, Nebraska, they didn't shake hands. So that's like Midwest, even worse than a flag plant. It's very disrespectful.
Just that passes in the Midwest for the highest form of insult, refusing to shake hands afterward.
Yeah, they basically were like, screw you. Nebraska fans were not happy about that.
Mike Ryan, your thoughts here on the flag planting incident that grabbed everybody this weekend?
I'm gonna get called such a boomer. I've been pretty consistent about this, and it may come as a surprise to some folks because I'm a big University of Miami guy, and they kind of invented being unsportsmanlike. But I've been very consistent when it comes to the college game. I don't like the taunting direct to opponents. I don't like hand gestures that are upside down, that are once a player scores a touchdown, puts horns down in someone else's face, and that goes with impunity. I certainly don't like the flag planting, and I think something needs to be done with it. I know this is a losing position. I understand how old I sound, but rationally, if I can explain to you, this is the only sport in the world where that stuff is allowed. We have long since been at the tipping point for court storming and field storming. It's been a discussion, and we all know that it's kind of like hanging on by a thread because all it takes is one really nasty incident between fans and players, and that's probably gone forever because it's building and building. If someone tries to do what we've saw several times over the weekend, which is take an item that is closely associated with another team and after a result, plant it on the field and physically taunt not just the opposing team, claim land, and taunt everybody else there. In Europe, that starts a riot. So I'm just saying it's the only place where we allow this in sports. And I'd say that even though I'm in the vast minority here, the world of sports is in the vast majority. That stuff shouldn't really exist.
Here's one of the things that I think about this, and I have a lot of thoughts about it because it seems to me a natural escalation of, and I know it's been happening for a long time, but these coaches having less control over these players than they would like to have over these players. I saw a Shedeur Sanders commercial this week, and I don't know how many college football players are doing ads, but it's still startling to me to see a college football player doing a television commercial, and he's doing it for a team that spent the weekend dragging Oklahoma State and making fun of them every time they scored a touchdown because they enjoy their celebrations in Colorado. Oklahoma State, by the way, as bad a big program school I've seen playing football outside of perhaps Purdue and Florida State this season. Oklahoma State, winless in the conference, did not have a chance to complete a pass in that game. I'm sure they completed some, but it seemed like their receivers were always covered in that game. And it seems like if you keep giving these players more and more power in these situations, you're going to get more and more unruly behavior, not less. When the schools are fined, whatever it was, $100,000, or the conference is fined $100,000, that's not going to affect the behavior of the players at all.
Okay, a few things. First, I'm not worried about Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy's going to get a cabinet position. He will be fine. He's going to move on just okay. I think that something I talk about college sports all the time. I think something we tend to forget is we're holding 18 and 19-year-olds to this insane moral standard. Their frontal lobes are not developed. Their brains are not fully developed. These are intense rivalries. I don't love the conversation of making it seem like players weren't fighting before. Players have been fighting in college football for a very long time. You don't want to see a situation like Michigan, Ohio State, where you're having to use mace, which was very unnecessary, by the way.
You're not having to use it.
No,
it was unnecessary.
No, it was an incredibly unnecessary move by, I think it was the Columbus Police Department. I am not sure. I like the rivalries in college football. I kind of like the hatred. I think it's what makes it special. I don't know if there's hatred like that in another sport, with maybe the exception of European soccer. So, we don't want to see fighting. No one wants to see insane fighting, but horns down gestures are hilarious, like planting the flag. That's been happening for years. Ohio State didn't seem to have a problem with planting the flag when they did it at Oklahoma. It's just something that happens in the sport. It's part of the rivalry. It's part of why college football is such an American institution. There isn't really much like it, and they're 19 years old. They just don't know better.
Don't you think this is a pretty recent thing, though? Basically, Baker started a trend, and you have all these impressionable 19-year-olds, as you put it, kind of being rewarded for chasing this social clout. It's in all the highlight packages. We all love it. If ESPN and the broadcast partners use these things as B-roll to promote upcoming games, I think that the flag planting and the taunting at the middle of the field, I saw South Carolina fans taking off their belt and whipping the tiger paw. I also think that Cocky the Gamecock crapped all over the paw in midfield. These are all
what a great sentence.
His name is Sir Big Spur, by the way. Please don't get it wrong.
Look, there's been stuff where you have opposing fans break into a stadium before and carve their initials into that stuff. I guess it has a lore, but I could just do without it. And I think that it's getting a little bit more out of control, and the NCAA has kind of emboldened it. And now we're at a point where you're having pretty ugly scenes. What happened in Michigan and Ohio State was ugly. Other people got caught up in it. And I think it's all a byproduct of doing nothing. So I think that they should do something to try to mitigate this.
Not mace.
I don't want to make light of this, but I think Arizona and Arizona State handled this right. The mascots settle it. If there's an issue after a game, if someone does something disrespectful,
right,
the mascots meet at the 50-yard line and settle it.
All right.
Make the coaches fight. Ryan Day, step up.
Right.
Because the idea of a mascot's head getting completely flipped around is always funny.
Sure. How about the losers just go to the locker room, take their medicine, and that's about it? The winners get to stay out on the field. I don't care what field they're on. and they get to celebrate. Why?
Protect your
Because they
fields,
beat
yeah.
you. Yes, right.
That is what a lot of people are saying today, and that incident was indeed ugly, but I would say to you that there's a lot of general lawlessness going on around college football that can also be described that way as ugly. And when you get into one of these situations where there's a cooling off period because of the emotions of what those people are doing. It hurts. They care a great deal. We're not allowed immediately into the locker room because they're afraid of what the players might say in those situations because they're all elevated. So when you do something that is that blatantly disrespectful on a field, I do understand the response of like, all we can do here to resolve this at this point is fight because it's insulting and because everyone is elevated and frustrated. Man, Stugotz, Ohio State seniors. Imagine you're an Ohio State senior and you haven't beaten Michigan once. That's the end of your career right there. You have yet to beat Michigan, and that's how your career ends, where you're a senior who hasn't won against them one time and they're planting a flag in your field at the end when you're a 3-touchdown a favorite.
Right, and I'm saying don't let that happen.
Yeah, beat Michigan.
Beat
Very
them.
simple.
I mean,
agreed.
Losing to Michigan 4 times is a
Right.
lot worse than them planting a flag.
It's a terrible Michigan team coming into Ohio State. Beat them, and they don't plant the flag.
Yeah, that's the vast majority of folks are lining up there. I'd say overwhelming 95% are like, you don't like it, don't let them score. You don't like it, don't let them win. I understand that. Sometimes, there's 2 teams playing. There's always going to be a loser. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for these teams to be sore losers about it. It's also distinctly American to be like, you losers. Yeah, well, why would you take exception to someone taunting you after you lose? It's a human emotion. I think that they should do something about it.
Are you not American? I'm confused. It's distinctly American. Europe sucks. I don't know if you're aware of this. Like, we keep saying, like, well, in Europe, this would happen. Europe is terrible, which is why all of us left Europe. That's why everybody's here in America, because everyone decided, you know what? Europe is terrible. Like, the English decided, the Spaniards decided, the Italians decided. Every single person came together at one point in time and said, you know what? We may not disagree on a lot of things, but we can all agree. Europe sucks. Let's just jump on this boat and see where it takes us, because we can't be here anymore. Because Europe, again, terrible. No air conditioning. Everything is old. Horrible. All they do is try to steal American culture and then tell you all of their old crap is so great. Europe, terrible. And it takes forever to get there. Forever to get there. If I'm boarding a plane for 8 hours, Europe better not be where I'm landing.
You should have used the other voice. They're going to know that was you.
What? What other voice?
You know the voice.
Who's going to know it's me? Europe? Okay, an entire continent's going to be mad at me? Okay, Europe. You have a problem with me? That's fine. Next time I'm there, you can take it up with me, which is hopefully never. Unless the Dolphins play in Spain next year, because you go to Spain to watch the Dolphins play. That'll be fun.
What
Europe.
happened with you in Europe? Like, what happened?
I'm just so
stunned
over
by
Europe.
this.
I'm just over it in general. Are you guys not over Europe?
Right.
No,
I'm not the only one. Guys, we all decided to leave Europe.
I like visiting Europe. I don't have these.
Exactly. Visit for a short time.
But no one's flocking there to live.
then you come
Right.
back.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
I don't have these poisonous feelings about Europe that you do.
Yeah,
that
Ellen moved to Europe, and guess what happened? Her house is underwater.
That's right.
Great move, Ellen.
As soon as she moved to Europe, yes, her mansion.
So great, Europe
flooded.
over there. Whoops, my house is gone.
We've got plenty of
Thoughts and prayers, by the way, to
flooding
everyone affected by all
over
the
here.
floods. Yeah, in Spain, there's floods too. Serious situation. We shouldn't be making light of it, Dave.
Mike. We weren't.
Thank you, on the record.
Cocky the Gamecock did what?
Sir, Big Spur.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Please be respectful.
Yeah, I confused
oh
him
my
with
God,
the
they
dress
were going to name him
mascot.
Cock Commander. Wish they had.
Wow.
Would have been way better. No, they were going to name him Commander, and they were like, can't name Commander. And we were like, why not?
If Miami had won their mascot, the Ibis could have claimed to be the Commander, because a Syracuse reporter is claiming publicly that Ibis, the mascot, was hitting on her during the game on Saturday. The game that ended Miami's season in a totally calamitous fashion.
It seemed to be a jokey tweet. It seemed to be just funny, and that happens every game you go to. I don't mean to brag. I get hit on by mascots all the time. Big Al loves me.
Really?
Yeah, very pretty.
Something
No,
liberating.
the elephant from Alabama.
Something liberating about wearing a mask that allows you to rizz people up.
Yes, men do that all the time. Stugotz claimed to be John Wiener, the Marlins backup catcher, in 1998. When he was working in the ticket office, wearing a different kind of mask.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell me from among the things that I mentioned, and I want to mention a couple of others that I learned over the weekend that I did not know. C.J. Stroud, one of the reasons he may have regressed is 25 of the sacks have been allowed by guards or center. Like 20, pressure up the middle is going to short circuit just about anybody. I wanted to ask Trevor Lawrence yesterday, for what? For what? You're taking that hit for what? Like you're going out
fair,
there.
He was doing everything in his power to not absorb
take
a
the
hit.
hit, yes.
Yeah, he was.
Right.
I mean, he was doing what he was taught to avoid getting hit in that spot.
We're making a big deal of that. It was a bad hit. It was a violent hit. There is no room for that in the sport. But
No,
Dan. The guy, occasionally that's going to happen. Where a guy who was trained to tackle and trained to be aggressive, occasionally that is going to happen. And people were outraged they wanted him kicked out of the sport for the remainder of the year. Someone brought up Dick Night Train Lane yesterday. What are we doing? It happened. It was bad. Let's move on.
Man, I'm a baby. I'm just so on the losing side of all these things. I thought it was pretty egregious.
I'm not saying it wasn't.
It was really bad. Like Trevor Lawrence that may impact Trevor Lawrence for the rest of his life.
I totally
And it was just
understand.
dumb.
There's no room for it in the sport. But the conversation yesterday and into last night, for crying out loud, was this guy should be suspended for the rest of the year. It's a violent sport. He made a bad decision. It was a gruesome hit. It was ugly. I'm certain he's going to learn his lesson, and hopefully he won't do it again.
He was kicked out.
But can we move on?
I'm with
kicked
Stugotz.
out of the game.
People were acting like there was he set out before the game. It was just he went a little far. It's a fast moving game. I'm with Stugotz.
No.
It's a bad play. He should be suspended. He should probably be fined. But to say I'm not going to read malicious intent from that. That's just the game's moving fast.
Yes.
No, that was a very dirty play that happened. And he went into we didn't see it the same as Tua, but he went into the fencing pose. If you saw his hands, they both clenched up and they were fists. It was an ugly concussion that he got. And he, by the way, seemingly kind of forced his way into that game because there was kind of he's questionable. He's like, no, I'm 100% playing. Because if you remember, he was coming off of an injury to get into that game to then just get rocked on a dirty play.
Stugotz, the reason the reaction is what it is because we are all recoiling from seeing one of the players who has a human face we recognize that's not hidden behind a mask, be in a position where you can see physically, oh, that's a brain injury I can diagnose right here on my couch. That's the reason that we recoil that way. I'd be curious to ask you guys this question on two fronts that we're talking about. One, Lucy, what's in your phone that's so interesting? One
is that a question?
Is the flag planting?
You sounded like a teacher.
Yeah,
Would you
I
like to
didn't
share
like
with the
that.
class?
I'm just curious.
You know what?
I'm curious. I wanted to ask her this question. I didn't know whether she was listening to what I was saying or not, so I'm curious.
You're talking about Trevor Lawrence and the dirty hit. I pay attention. Guess what, Dan? I'm young. I can multitask. I can be on my phone and listen and be a shining star.
Okay, very good. I'm going to challenge that theorem over the course of the next couple of times you're in here. We'll see. The two things I wanted to ask you guys are, one, do you believe if we're getting 100% honesty from the locker rooms, if I go both into the Texans locker room and into the Michigan locker room and ask, do you regret that? Do you regret what happened there? Yes or no, that is causing people so much anger. Do you regret the action that knocked their quarterback out of the game with a dirty hit?
Michigan, I'm a little confused. You said Michigan.
I would not regret it if I was Michigan. I would regret it more if I was Ohio State, maybe.
I think the Texans regret what happened to Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Michigan regrets what it did at all.
No,
Not at
Michigan, the running back they interviewed after the game, he was like, you got to learn how to lose, which, by the way, is such a bar. Oh, my God. Damn, he got their ass so bad.
You think they
Right.
know by now, too.
Right, yeah.
You would think they know. If I went into the Texans locker room, I'm less sure than you guys are that the headhunting that can sometimes result in eliminating the opposing quarterback starter so that now Mac Jones is in the game and you have a better chance to win. I'm not sure how many teams before a game, if I go in and I say, look, here's the deal. There's going to be a dirty hit that you didn't intend to be dirty, but it happened. The game moves fast, and you got a player eliminated. And the result of that is he gets knocked out of the game, but so does the opposing starting quarterback get knocked out of the game. And given that every week is how do we win in the margins, how do we win in the margins, I'm not sure you're getting a consensus on, yeah, I really regret everything that happened there.
We'll talk that out a little bit more in your locker room and add cutting off the head of a snake and you're suspended for a year. And you look like you're in witness protection the next time you reemerge in the NFL. Like, what you're saying is exactly what led to Bountygate.
I don't 100% understand the question. So, like, is the question, are you happy that you knocked out their quarterback? Or is the question, like, if you were to ask them, like, on truth serum, do they admit that that was a dirty play? Because, like, I think that they can know that that's a dirty play and be like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. We knocked out their quarterback. We don't care. Which is, like, a lot of what's going on. But I think that they would also, if they were to watch the replay, admit, like, yeah, that was a dirty play.
Well, C.J. Stroud after the game said it was a dirty play, and hopefully he learns from that.
But
right.
he also is the one that will be on the receiving end of a play like that.
Doubt.
So, like, he sees it differently than defenders would see it.
What I'm generally saying is the violence that's all out there on Sunday and Saturdays, it's all transactional. There are consequences for the violence, and there are rewards. There are payments all over the place for the violence. And one of the rewards is Mac Jones is coming into the game, and that's good for anybody who's playing against Mac Jones, even though the way that game ended up going, Mac Jones seemed to be getting more results from points than Trevor Lawrence was.
Mac Jones, they left the back door open for him, and he went right through it. That one hurt.
I mean, yeah, but also, like, okay, it's a violent sport, but it's a 2-10 Jaguars that pose no threat to you, right? And, like, you have a comfortable-ish lead in your division, so you're probably going to make the playoffs. I would say that the consequence is retribution at some point, which then is like, okay, now what if we go and we take a shot at C.J. Stroud as a result? And then that's where you regret it. Now, it didn't happen, but, like, those are the things that could happen as a result of these clearly dirty plays, especially against a team that has nothing to lose like the Jaguars. Because there's no, like, real rivalry and heated history there between Trevor Lawrence and the Texans or, you know, the Jaguars and the Texans. The Jaguars are out of it. So it's a dumb play because you could then get someone on your team hurt as a result of this play.
I am not surprised that you are wearing flannel today that you dug out of your closet,
it's in the 50s.
as we all are. Yeah, because it's in the 50s here. We're reaching into parts in the closet that we don't normally go into. I am surprised you're wearing a Dolphin cap today.
Why is that?
What do you mean?
I mean,
These
The
colors
Dolphin
don't
fan.
bleed.
Right.
they did exactly
Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them.
what?
Some of them did exactly what you would think. And I have the stats to prove it, Jack.
So what are you going to prove to me?
I will tell you this, and I quote, at FB_analytical, FB Analytics on the X. Since 1999, 5 quarterbacks have produced a single game stat line of 350-plus passing yards, 80% completion percentage, 2+ passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and lost. Big Ben, 34 of 46, 400 passing yards. You don't need to know all the stats. Big Ben, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson, and Tua on Thanksgiving night. Dan, I know what you're going to say here. Tua's 0-8 in the cold. He can't win a game in the cold. Now, here's the unfortunate reality of the situation. Tua did not lose that game for the Dolphins. The Dolphins could not make a stop on defense in that Thanksgiving game. They couldn't tackle anyone. They didn't seem to be interested in tackling anyone.
Fumble, punt.
The offensive line was terrible. Armstead had a horrendous game. It's a miracle that Tua even completed 80% of his passes because he was getting hit left and right. There was no one defending. And, again, as Stugotz pointed out, you had that botched fumble on the punt, and then you still had him going out there and almost botching other fumbles. The Dolphins did kind of what you thought they were going to do. However, this is going to stick to Tua, as it should, and it's unfortunate because he had a great game for Tua standards, especially in the elements. It just didn't work out for him and the Dolphins, as it doesn't work out for him and the Dolphins in the cold. But It is not his fault, and I know that that's what's going to happen. And here's the thing about Tua that is unfortunate, and it's really unfortunate for the Dolphins, and it's probably what's going to get Chris Greer fired if we're going to be predicting situations here, because some people were saying that Mike McDaniel should be fired as well, and I don't know if I'm ready to go down that path. I think maybe you give, if you're asking me and you're not necessarily asking me, I think maybe you give Mike McDaniel another year, because he's basically a 500 coach at the moment. You give McDaniel another year, but you bring in someone else to make the personnel decisions, and then you see exactly what's going on. What's happened is that we've seen people were saying, can Tua do it? Is Tua good enough? And that was the question for 2-3 years now. Is Tua your franchise quarterback? And what we've seen this year, in part because of Chris Greer and the way he's managed this roster, is that Tua's the only thing that is working on this team right now. With Tua not there, this team is a disaster. And he does not have as much help as we think he has, because Tyreek Hill definitely has something going on, and we can't figure it out. Congratulations, by the way, Tyreek Hill. But he has something going on beyond just that race. It doesn't make sense, so he can't be people going over the top anymore. And maybe that knee procedure was actually more serious than they let us know, and we were never going to find out had he not been detained, not arrested.
I love that you're always
He didn't say that.
No, I know. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, Tua had a pretty good game, but he's going to get they're going to blame Tua for the situation.
Tyreek Hill was hurt more by that detaining and not an arrest than we know he was, correct? Like, all of it was revealed. It took.
I don't know, because the only good game he had was 5 minutes after that happened, where he had 130 yards or whatever and a touchdown. And then after that, the wheels fell off.
I think it's more defenses just taking away that. Like, they're just like, you're going to have to dink and dunk us. You're going to have to run the ball. And they are. I would say it's not just Tua. The offense with Tua is fine. We're running the ball. Our offensive line has been good this year. It's just in defense, like in the cold, we can't tackle.
Well, they can't stop people, right? Defense has been a problem for like a couple weeks now, going back to the Arizona game, where they scored 27 points that should win you a game, but Arizona then beats them. Jonnu Smith, love him. Paws up. So happy for him. Having a career year, he's going to get paid. He was not brought in to be the first option. And the past couple weeks, he's been the first option.
The past couple of weeks, the last month, they target him more than anybody.
But it's showing that Mike McDaniel, who has innovated on offense and fixed some of the issues by doing different things. They're doing creative orbit motions. It's kind of like all the rage in the NFL right now. The offense is going through Jonnu Smith because that's what defenses are giving them with the two high safeties. And you have two guys that are supposed to be those type of coverage beaters, but for whatever reason, Waddle and Hill haven't been what they've been in previous years.
Mike McDaniel is 1-15 against teams with winning records. Like, that's bad, man.
That's pretty
Yes,
bad.
it is. Yes, it is. That is bad, and they are bad in the cold, and this is the time of year that they've been bad for 20 years.
But I'm going to say this, because I know Dan doesn't like to do the schedule thing. I always do the schedule thing. The Dolphins are going to finish this season with 5 consecutive wins. How about that?
That's crazy.
Well, I think they are. I do.
They'll make the playoffs if they do that.
I know.
Are there any winning teams on their schedule?
There's one winning team on the schedule.
They play the Texans and the Niners. Those are the two tougher games.
Yeah. Well, no, the Niners don't have a winning record right now.
I'm just saying, in theory, they have 2 more tougher games, and then they have 2 against the Jets and 1 against the Browns.
Yep. I mean, 5 straight.
They're in a bad spot. The Dolphins are, not just schedule-wise, because there's legitimate questions about the blueprint of this team and what you do moving forward, right? Chris Greer has gotten a lot of it, and you do wonder, is it time? Because you have these pieces, but you're like, if you're going to be honest, you're just not good enough. Like, this Dolphins team is simply not good enough as they are right now, and you're wasting the pieces that you had. You made the decision not to trade Calais Campbell. You made the decision not to trade Tyreek Hill, whether that was ever a reality or not. There were rumblings. Do you trade Tyreek Hill and figure something out? Now, if the talks are you got to get rid of Greer and, hey, Mike McDaniel's not getting the job done, if Mike McDaniel is out of the picture, which I don't believe he should be, I don't think Mike McDaniel should be fired, although we haven't really seen the level of success that we were anticipating to see from Mike McDaniel's offense yet. But I don't think that it's time to give up on Mike McDaniel, in part because if you get rid of Mike McDaniel, then what happens with Tua, who plays perfectly with Mike McDaniel, although it's presently not good enough to get you where you are expecting to go?
Let me ask the group whether in the history of watch parties done by entities
it's going to be a big one,
as large as ours, there has ever been a game that had a worse combined record than the 4-7 the Dolphins are throwing against, what is it, the 3-9 Jets? Is that are the Jets at 3-9 as they lose another one, Stugotz?
Yep.
I don't understand why the Jets are ever favored in any of these games. All they do is get favored somehow with betting money and then lose all of the games. I'm assuming that yesterday is as good as Aaron Rodgers has looked all season. Physically moving around, connecting with Davante Adams. Like, I have not seen him look that fresh this entire season, and they lose anyway.
I don't think we've ever had a watch-along event where the stakes are so high.
Yeah, big stakes.
Like, this is the Dolphins season right here.
It's this Sunday. It's Sunday service. It's presented by Smirnoff. Join God Bless Football at Vivo at Dolphin Mall. Jets-Dolphins rivalry game. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. Eastern. Watch along live. They'll be on YouTube. We'll all be out there. Come on out.
Yeah, by the way, we're going to be going from 12 to 5, so you can get there a little bit early. I would recommend getting there early because, again, holiday shopping is going to be going on this weekend, and Dolphin Mall is a very busy place as it is. If you can't go, check it out. And, Dan, you ask, basically saying, why are we doing a Dolphins versus Jets game? Who wants to see the Dolphins?
I didn't ask that.
It is implied. It was implied. And I'll remind you, sir, we've done Bears versus Panthers and Cardinals versus Jets. So this is
the
nothing
game of the year.
We
this
do
is
bad
nothing
games,
new
Dan.
to us
Game of
for
the
our
year.
watch parties, Dan.
Yep.
You know what I was thinking yesterday watching the Eagles game in the 4 o'clock? They show Vic Fangio, and it got me thinking, what did he see last year? Because we all kind of criticized him, like, oh, he's an old guy, he doesn't get this, the young guy, but he goes to Philly, and they have, like, the best defense in the league. It's rare that a defensive coordinator is just like, I'm good. I'm going to leave. And we all, I feel like we overlooked that. And now you see this team, and I just wonder, what did he see? I would love an honest interview of Vic Fangio just appraising Mike McDaniel, the way he runs it. Because it's odd. When do you see defensive coordinators just leave a team? And he did that last year. And so as the Dolphins struggle, and as I see him still up in that booth, crushing it, it got me thinking, what did he see last year?
As I understood
A bad defense.
As I understood it, it wasn't more complicated than he just wanted to be in Philly.
Yeah,
And he's
perhaps.
older, and he's at the
Yes.
end of his career, and he just wants to do things he wants to do.
But if he saw a team that was like, we are real, he didn't think this team was close.
I mean, Philly was probably considered by most to be closer.
True.
than
And
Miami.
he has like the pedigree that he can make a move like that. It's just I'm starting to look at that differently, him leaving the Dolphins.
To what Dan was saying before about the Jets, they're the first team in the Super Bowl era to be favored in 9 of their first 12 games and be 3-9.
If I were a conspiracy-minded theorist who was thinking that Jets management was mad at Aaron Rodgers for everything that's happened, I would do what they did yesterday and have him as the lead blocker on reverses more often.
Yes,
because he
yes.
did that yesterday, and I'm like, what are we doing there? Allowing a 40-year-old to sprint into a secondary with the assignment of blocking, and anyone can hit him.
It was the first time in his career he's had a 14-plus point lead at home and lost. He was 75-0 at Lambeau. It's so Jets. But it was a good loss. I'm glad they lost. We needed that loss.
Congrats go out to the AFC East Division champion Buffalo Bills. I think we can say with certainty that after the Davante Adams trade, the gulf between the Jets and the Bills actually increased.
Let's get the video for people of snowballs being thrown
was
during
fun.
field goal attempts. And Chris Cody, do me the favor as well. I'd like to empty the file. You mentioned people who have left here and gone on to better things like Vic Fangio. I'd like to clear out our computer file on all of the songs and all of the jokes we told at Dan Campbell's expense. Can you find all of those, please? Because Man Campbell, when he came to South Florida and was coaching our team, that is something that we spent a lot of time mocking, and now Man Campbell is pretty close to the top of the sport. I guess Philadelphia would make some arguments. Kansas City's got to be the worst 11-1 team there's ever been.
Wow. I cannot believe you said that.
I mean, it's not saying much.
Right.
Usually the 11-1 teams are good and win by a lot. They don't struggle against Carolina. They don't need a botched snap by the Raiders who are falling apart to win at home. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show, please, Juju. Are the Kansas City Chiefs the worst 11-1 team there's ever been?
I agree with you, but I don't think you want me agreeing with you as it relates to the Chiefs. You said it. I'm just supporting you. Oh, God. See ya.
I'm sorry. You're not allowed to talk the Chiefs under any circumstances.
But I'm agreeing.
Let's try that again, Chris Cody, and this time get the timing right.
Stugotz minor penalty, 2 minutes for Chiefs talk.
You've earned that penalty, Stugotz. You've been doubting the Chiefs, and you can't doubt the Chiefs for 2 consecutive Super Bowl runs. Be that wrong and suffer no consequences for your Chief opinions.
So they have a 54 point winning differential, which is like mid-table in the NFL. But it's quite the take when you consider this is a team that's won back-to-back Super Bowls and 3 in total recently, that they're the worst 11-1 team of all time.
You don't get to 11-1 with that point differential. Some of those close games end up getting lost. They've won a couple of games with a blocked field goal and a botched snap from the other team. You're not even the other team is failing more than you're succeeding.
It's certainly you got to think it comes back to haunt them, but this isn't a team that just burst on the scene. You know, we know them to be good.
You guys would have laughed yesterday if you had seen what it is that happened with me outside of Whole Foods, where I'm coming out of Whole Foods, and I wonder what you guys would do. A tiny dog. This is Alton Road, okay? So this is a road that has some traffic on it.
Right.
A tiny dog is running down the sidewalk, and the owner of the dog is running after the dog, shouting its name. And the dog just keeps running. And the woman who's chasing the dog isn't moving fast enough, and the dog is moving fast, and it's a heavily trafficked area.
Right.
So
Dogs can scoot, Dan.
that's correct. So, but she could not. She was not scooting at the rate of speed that she needed to. So, in an attempt to be heroic, I put down my grocery bags and I sprint after the dog, and I am now running after the dog, and it's several blocks that I'm running after the dog, and thankfully, and I'm not catching up to the dog. The dog is still running, and she's falling further and further behind both me and the dog, and then a helpful person on a bicycle comes over and cuts the dog off. Otherwise, I'd still be running I'd run straight into the ocean chasing that dog.
Did she catch you?
She did not catch me. No.
Did she watch your groceries? You just left them.
I did. I just left them. I left them
Those
right
chicken
on.
nuggets?
Chicken nuggets.
Oh, you don't get those from Whole Foods? Oh, they're fantastic. They are great. Baked chicken nuggets. Amazing.
What are you talking about? My Whole Foods doesn't even have those.
Go to a new one.
Okay. I don't think that chicken nuggets is something that
They
Whole
have 'em.
Foods is known for.
They have them.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Yeah, thanks for they have them. Thank you.
They have 'em. I mean,
I got to try these now.
oh, they're delicious. Baked?
At Le Batard Show, is Whole Foods known?
Well, not now. But.
It's Whole Foods known for its chicken nuggets.
Dan, what was going through your head? Because I've always been interested in getting in the head of a hero who decides just to act. So how did you know it's time to act? It was fight or flight for you, and you decided to fight in this situation. So what kicked in? Like, what happened that you're like, I need to act now?
The 9th time I heard the name of the dog called and realized what it is had just happened. I don't process
So it was
things
a delayed fight.
as quickly as
Yeah.
I should, which is what I was going to say if you hadn't interrupted me, that I don't process things as quickly as I should. So sometimes something has to happen. Like, I don't think I noticed her calling the dog's name 4 times. And I don't think it sort of totally registered with me that the dog was running loose immediately. I was slowly slow to react as a hero.
What was the name of the dog? Was it at least a funny name?
Picturing Muffin.
Yeah, 4 times.
What
I mean,
name were you screaming also while running? This is very important
So
for me.
I was having actual trouble understanding her accent.
Cracking up the excuse
and the
machine.
dog wasn't
European.
particularly listening to anything that I was saying, but I was shouting while running, and now it's a good question for you to ask because I was shouting, Dada! Dada! And so anybody who didn't, what I was fearing is somebody who didn't see the dog just recognizes me and is like, why is Dan Le Batard running down the street?
He's lost it.
Gonzo's lost his marbles. Got
Shouting
a silver alert
Dada.
for Gonzo.
Just Gonzo? Is it Gonzo or Gonzo and his son have lost their marbles because I'm just shouting Dada running down the street? Didn't you have an encounter with someone heroic this weekend?
Just yesterday I had a situation somewhat similar. Now, not as good now as your story, but somewhat similar. So I was driving. It was my sister's birthday. Happy birthday to her! I'm sure everybody's excited. So, anyways, we were going to like a birthday lunch situation. And we were driving in. We pulled into a shopping center, and something I've never experienced before happened, where a rogue shopping cart was running away from the shopping cart. Like not owner because you borrow them, but running away from the person who the shopping cart belonged to.
The user.
And it was running right towards our car. And I wasn't driving, and I pointed. I was a little under the weather. I pointed to my wife, and I'm because I was like under the weather. And fight or flight, I usually flight. So I was just pointing, like things gonna hit our car. Then we're gonna get a dent. I'm gonna have to do. What do you do? Do you call insurance? Do I pay for this dent out of pocket? How much is that gonna cost? Because cars nowadays, not what they used to be. Back in the day when cars were steel, those things could get hit. It wouldn't even matter. Now they're all like fiberglass and plastic and all this stuff, and just like a little flick, like a little flick, and the whole thing is totaled essentially. So like I don't want this shopping cart to hit my car. So we're in the car, and the shopping cart is coming towards us. My wife is driving towards it, and I'm like, we need to stop. A woman sees that this shopping cart is coming, and I see that she has a shopping cart that she's loading into her car, and she sprints to go get the shopping cart. But I say, you know what? I don't think that's her shopping cart. I don't know where that shopping cart came from. So we have this rogue shopping cart coming. A woman is running, and then out of like my peripheral, all of a sudden, someone swoops by on a golf cart, one-handed, grabs the shopping cart, ushers it away, and then continues driving away. And this man did this while holding the golf cart in one hand. It seemed as though he had a child in the golf cart with him.
Get out of here.
And I say, that was incredible. And then I go, wait a minute. Was that Aaron Feld? Miami Hurricane strength coach?
The guy with the crazy mustache?
The guy with the mustache came in and saved my life and saved my car and then kept driving. I couldn't even stop and think, be like, are you Miami's strength coach, Aaron Feld? Like, I know this mustache. Like, is that you? Couldn't even stop and thank him. He just kept driving. He ushered it away, kept driving into like the shopping center. Paused very briefly. We parked the car, and then he was gone. Guy came in like a hero and saved the day.
I had the conversation with Valerie. Do me the favor here, Chris, of playing the song again here, because I had the conversation with Valerie this weekend while watching the Syracuse-Miami game. I'm like, look at this, honey. And she's like, oh, it's Movember. I'm like, no, it looks that way all the time.
4 days of football, yeah, that's the holidays.
I'm still just like, how did the cart get on? Like, it was just a rogue cart flying down the
It
parking
was
lot?
crazy. It was
it on a hill?
It was a windy day. I guess that the parking lot might have been slightly sloped, but like I was so taken aback by the entire thing happening, and then I'm like, did he have time to fly back from Syracuse already? Like, is it? It has to. There's no one else that could have been but him.
Well, Billy, the thing that you're
when you see Aaron Feld, you know you've seen Aaron Feld.
And then he's gone like that in a flash. You can't even thank him.
The
so
thing
thank you, Aaron.
that you're describing has made me wonder aloud because you don't have him grabbing the shopping cart. He's just altering its course.
Didn't even stop. He kept driving with one hand and then got it and ushered it away with the other while driving. It was incredible.
The thing that you're saying, though, is I'm having trouble, and I'm going through the entire catalog here, and this is difficult to do live, thinking of anyone in the history of South Florida sports visually funnier to be in that golf cart.
I couldn't believe it.
In the history of South
Feld?
Florida sports, I'm trying to think of someone funnier being a hero in that spot just visually than for my intents and purposes, it was only his mustache that did this. The rest of him wasn't even involved.
From behind, it was the side of his head. You just see kind of like a clean fade in the mustache. And I told my wife when it happened, I go, like as it's going on, I go, I think that's UM strength coach. And she goes, how do you know that? I go, I know that. You know that. If you know what he looked, you know that's him.
But you were doing it from the back. You weren't doing the distinctive feature of the handlebar mustache.
It was so fast. It was just like a silhouette. Like you just see his face very quickly. He does this heroic deed. My life flashed before my eyes. My car, the insurance, all of that. And you just get a quick look at the side of his face, and then he turns, and then you just see the side of the mustache with the wax like from the back, and then you see his hair, and you're like, yeah, that's definitely who that was.
That mustache requires the daily wax on the corners, correct? I don't know what the maintenance of a handlebar mustache takes, but it must take every morning. You have to put in the product to get that the wispy, crisp ends of that, which leads us to finally the University of Miami game. And I just want to ask you, Mike, because I feel great shame as I sit before all of you here. I don't know if Mike remembers the last text I sent him. I don't know if Mike Ryan is angry about the last text that I sent him.
I left him alone.
Well, no, this wasn't after the game. I left him alone after the game as well. It was at 21-0. I texted him that they were going to leapfrog Oregon.
Oh.
That Oregon wasn't.
That loss is on you. I mean.
I do feel, you know what? I don't believe in superstition, but I agree. I absolutely agree, and I'm wondering if Mike Ryan is angry because he dared to hope a wildly successful season by any measure, but you go from an 85% chance of being in the playoff to a 40% chance of being in the playoff, and a number of things that happened in that game were debilitating. I don't know of many times in UM's history that they've ever blown a 21-point lead, and I would ask you to look up for me if a UM defense has ever given up as many points as this UM defense did this season. Has there ever been a University of Miami defense that gave up the point totals that this one gave up?
Had to have, just because they've had some games where they've had really low point totals opposing.
Certainly not a good one. Certainly not a good UM team has never had this kind of defensive issue.
Again, entering the game, they were top 15 in team defense, but you were right to be concerned because they showed all season long that they're really bad at stopping sweeps to the outside, and when opposing teams force them to make plays in space, or when they have corners isolated, in which Lance Guidry went out of his way. I mean, how many times did we see it? Over a dozen times where he blitzes the safety, leaves a corner on an island, and you have Syracuse receivers who are elite at not really getting separation but still coming down with a catch. They are just ball winners, and Kyle McCord just ripped them to shreds. He identified it immediately. Heartbreaking for Miami in that it was a good season. This is exactly where Miami needs to be in year 3. If I told you before the season, 2 losses by a combined 9 points on the road, those 2 losses come into pretty decent opponents. That should be good enough to...
Bowl teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Syracuse is ranked, and Georgia Tech showed everybody on Friday night exactly why they're a nightmare to play, especially at their barn. But I would say that Miami had an opportunity to lock itself into the playoff, and because they lost that game, they should not be in the playoff. I could make a compelling argument that I would half believe about Alabama lost to 2 6-win teams. Oklahoma, there's no scenario in which Miami loses that game 24-3 at Oklahoma.
You're 4-2 against bowl teams. Alabama's not.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very arbitrary, they have no ranked wins. That's not arbitrary in terms of the top 25. We'll see what the CFP comes up with, because I think the CFP has shown in recent weeks that they don't really even use the AP or coaches poll as a guideline. I think that there is a scenario in which you take from the Louisville, Duke, Florida crop that 1 to 3 of those may be actually ranked by tomorrow. But look, Miami blew it, and it's the defense, and it's a real shame because they had a unicorn at quarterback this year. They had the greatest offense in the nation. We said if they just had a C-plus level on defense, they'd have a shot against anybody. And if teams just watch film, they know exactly how to turn a C-plus effort into an F-minus.
This has to hurt because you have Clemson on a down year, even though they'll play in that championship game. You have Florida State in a down year as well. And so it was there for the taking for the Canes. Plus, you have a 21-0 lead with the guy who's one of the favorites to win the Heisman Trophy Award against Syracuse. You got to close that out. That has to hurt. Plus, you have a coach that I don't care what anyone tells me. There is no way any Canes fan trusts that coach to make good decisions in the game, especially at the end of games.
We'll get to kicking the field goal in that spot, because if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose with Cam Ward throwing the ball on 4th and 9.
You would have lost with Cam Ward throwing
That's
the ball
fine.
there.
Probably. Yes, probably. And we have.
And you still have to stop them, which you weren't.
Agreed. But I would have enjoyed seeing Miami do what the Colts did against the Patriots yesterday, which is nope. Don't trust our offense. We're going to score. We're going to go for it on 4th and 9, and we're going to go for 2. I don't trust our defense. I just simply do not trust us to stop anybody for any circumstances. I don't know how bad Moton feels about the season ending with him jumping off sides. They weren't going to stop anybody anyway there either. I don't know.
The Jacoby George one was really bad. The personal foul there that backs him up to the 15.
Arroyo made such a great play there.
Yeah, there was the Zay Horton drop on the slant where he probably walks into the end zone. The pancake that was called as a holding on Martinez's kind of game-changing run. And the last 2 weeks, 2 very uncharacteristic fumbles from Xavier Restrepo. It's a shame because we've identified 6 plays that if they go differently, Miami wins. Hell, if Miami calls a different play, 4th and 1 against Georgia Tech, they could be undefeated right now, really. But look, they had a 21-point lead. That's supposed to increase your margin for error. You were running however you wanted in that game. I don't know why they didn't turn to the run game. Maybe we got infatuated. It's not like their offensive game plan was lacking. Chris Cody, you actually have some numbers here on the defense question that Dan posed.
Points per game, they've actually, this season, they gave up less points per game since any season since 1920. No, 2019-20, not 19-20.
Yeah,
so statistically, points-wise, they actually were better than in recent years this year.
Yeah, I think if you look under the hood, you're going to see individual instances, whether it be that Georgia Tech game here, this recent game, in which they're just really bad at doing a certain thing. And I understand what I've been complaining about is just be conservative on defense, play complementary football, just be in zone the entire time. But when they did go into zone, and when they have all season long, it's been a disaster. I don't know if they don't practice it, but you got blown assignments all over the field. No one knows where they're supposed to be on zone. So I understand why Lance Guidry is like, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. It's really unfortunate because Miami had a legit shot this year if they were capable of figuring out that defensive side of the ball, and they just blew it, and they're going to miss the CFP because of it.
Yeah, I mean, you lost 2 out of your last 3 to unranked opponents, and this was a year that Miami
Syracuse is ranked.
We're not counting the AP here. That's not, like you said earlier, they don't use that. This is we're college football ranking season here.
Okay, but we'll see tomorrow though with the CFP. It could all change.
Look, 2 losses late in the season, and you were in a conference where you got to avoid playing SMU and Clemson. It was ripe for the taking. I did not see this season ending this way for Miami. And we know I'm just a natural hater. That's who I am as a person. But it's a 10-win season is great. But it is disappointing in a sense. We're like, you avoided the two toughest teams in the conference. There's not one world where Miami should not be playing in Charlotte this weekend.
Your 2 losses, you were an 11-point favorite in both of the games.
Right.
You could not win on the road, and you could not win on the road, at least in part, because at the end of those games, Georgia Tech and Syracuse were going to run the ball, and you weren't going to be able to do anything about it, even though you knew they were going to run the ball. And
Right. If we're applying that measurement to losing late in the season and losing as a big favorite, then you could write off the SEC teams. It's just they're not. You'll be tilting at windmills. I think on the surface you can hold up Miami's resume and you could look at the losses and say they've lost by a combined 9 points. Even though if you contextualize the Georgia Tech game, that should have been a 2-score loss. They kneeled at the end zone before to just milk the clock.
Mike, can't you say the SEC teams though lost to better opponents?
No, I can't. No, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, those are trash opponents.
Right.
Those are bad losses. South Carolina had bad losses.
South Carolina had better wins.
Yeah, I understand, but they also have one additional loss too. So I hear you. You have a winning argument. I think that with the Georgia Tech-Georgia game, I think that was perfectly analogous to what I've been saying all year, which is, yeah, it might be true that the SEC is the best conference, but it's also wildly overrated. The gulf that was there in the 20-teens is not there between these two conferences. But ultimately, Miami had a play-in game, and they had a 21-0 lead in it. Yep. And I could parse 9 points on the road. That's a tough L. Anybody would have said 10-2 gets you at the very least to Charlotte, gets you into the CFP. It didn't. If you apply the state of the CFP right now, we'll see if the CFP does what many are expecting, which is last few weeks they haven't given a crap about this SEC narrative. And you saw with Clemson being ranked number 12 last year, they rate the ACC a little bit more than the talking heads do. If Miami is ranked number 11, if they're ranked ahead of South Carolina and ahead of Alabama, then what the CFP is telling you, they get in with a Clemson loss. Unless, Greg Sankey really fires up the media machine. And there is an aspect of that, too. Politicking for college football positioning is something that is as old as the sport. We saw Mac Brown nuke a traditional Rose Bowl because of his politicking one year. So the SEC are going to always win that politicking game too. Miami just blew it, and I can't work up the conviction. I can give you the arguments for it, but I myself don't believe it because Miami had an opportunity and they blew it.
Can I be honest for a second? Can I be safe space? Mm-hmm. Not loving the 12-team playoff right now.
Wow. Really? Wow.
Not loving it.
Wow.
I'll love it in.
Finally.
I'll love it in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. But it was when Ohio State lost to Michigan like that, I was like, that used to kill a season. And technically it still did sort of kill their season. They're very, very sad.
They're sad, but they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're in the playoff.
Right.
I do think there is more parity in the sport than we've seen in a really long time, but it's still very much my fear coming into the season, which I think has remained the same, is that the top are so much better than the rest. Even if you look at the way that Texas A&M game went, I know the score made it seem a lot closer than it was, but that was not a close game by any means. Texas dominated across the board, and that was, 2 top 25 teams. I just think that I think we're going to see a lot of blowouts in the first round, and I don't know. I'll be happy in 3 weeks because then it'll be like, oh my God, there's so much college football for me to watch and go to. That's going to be awesome. But right now I'm like, man, some of these losses used to mean a lot more. I don't specifically apply that to rivalries don't mean as much because obviously you saw with Michigan, Ohio State, but
right.
I don't know.
I have a
doesn't
question.
hit the same.
But now Ryan Day can win the national championship and all will be forgiven.
I don't know. They might still fire him.
Well,
they are really unhappy about him
That'd be
losing to
great.
Michigan. Also, I don't know if you guys saw this last week, but Ryan Day gave an interview which was kind of crazy where he was like, outside of my dad dying, losing to Michigan has been the worst thing that's happened to me and my family.
Yeah. But aren't we longing for a college football that never existed? There were plenty of times where we thought Alabama was done. That's it. They're not going to be in the playoff. And then they sneak in and they win a championship. Or LSU can't lose this game. And the SEC team always finds a way to navigate it and come out smelling like roses at the end.
So, Mike, let's use Miami and Colorado. I would like the committee to put those two teams into the playoff just for me, right?
You might get them at the Pop-Tart Bowl.
No, I would love
that would be even better, actually.
If the players don't opt out, that would be really fun.
I mean, imagine Miami going to Notre Dame for a first-round playoff game. That would be fantastic, right? But if Miami did make the playoffs, based on what you've seen the last 2 weeks, you don't think they have any shot, do you?
If they could figure out something defensively, look, they can score with anybody in the nation. I do think that they have a shot. Again, citing the Georgia Tech thing, the SEC and the ACC played 4 games this weekend. They were pretty much all close with the exception of Florida FSU, and Louisville just totally blew out a Kentucky team. So the ACC had a winning record against every major conference with the exception of the SEC, and it was very close. I think that Miami would have a shot against the likes of Notre Dame, but also Jeremiah Love would just run outside sweeps and destroy them, and it would be like one of those 48-45 games.
I have a question that is going to trigger you that I'm telling you on the front end. I'm not intending to trigger you on this, but I know that it will. And it's not even like the question of Mario deciding to kick for the field goal and that costing them the game or not costing the game or whatever. Is there a world in a serious conversation where Mario cost Cam Ward Heisman votes because he did not trust his best player seemingly in that spot to win a game for him or tie a game for him, and he took the ball out of his hand, and then voters can say, well, if this is the greatest player in the country, why did his coach not put the ball in his hand when the game was on the line and the playoffs were on the line?
I understand that. Look, Travis Hunter was minus 1,000 to win the Heisman Trophy entering that game, and all he did was get an interception and 3 touchdowns prior to that Miami game. So I don't think there was anything that Mario could have done to win this. In fact, maybe he was a little too infatuated with trying to win Cam Ward a Heisman Trophy because you salt that game away when you're effectively running the ball like that. A lot of people have takes on the field goal. You assume that Miami can score on a 4th and goal from like the 15. That's not easy. And also, you still need your defense to stop them. I think the rationale would be go for it because you'll run into a Syracuse offense that's going to be a little bit more conservative, and maybe you have a better shot at stopping them. No, we saw that conservative offense kill the game against Miami. So ultimately, they blew it with their mistakes, and they blew it with their defensive performance. And I actually think that Miami's been in a lot of close games this year, and Mario Cristobal has actually avoided blowing them. You look at, they've had, 9 really close games this season where it's come down to his in-game management. I've talked to people in the NFL that crunch those numbers in terms of, was this the right analytical call? They all said, it's pretty close. You still need to stop. So, and it's not the first time he's opted to, let me go for the win on my next possession. Ultimately, they just blew it. They couldn't stop Syracuse defensively.
I didn't get to watch the first half of that game. Rose got pepper sprayed, so we had to deal with other things. I guess my sort of like pushback on that is like you gave up a 21-point lead and you're going to put faith in your defense in that situation.
Right.
Like it just seems kind of crazy to me, especially when you do have Cam Ward. I'm not quite sure how he was playing in the first half of that game, but like you have one of the most electric players in college football and your defense has just crumbled to Syracuse. I don't know why you wouldn't just be like, all right, this is the time. This is what we spent all this money for.
That's a spot
like,
you don't trust your defense.
Yeah,
they give up 28 points
exactly,
in the second half.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the spot where you're like, hey, we are one of the best offenses in the country. Like I'm going to put faith in my, Heisman finalist quarterback here. I don't get it, but also I didn't get to watch the whole game.
I think it's a fair enough criticism, but I also think it's well overblown. You're underselling really how cataclysmic that failure was across the board. I think a lot of people are just looking for confirmation bias when it comes to Mario Cristobal and want to seize on like the one thing in that game that they felt was a coaching decision. In any scenario, you still have to trust your defense.
But it's not just that, because a lot of the criticism he got, too, was a lack of discipline because of what happened with Moton and what happened with George and what happened in general with them losing a game after being up 21-0. The only reason that I would have gone for it, even though it's the odds are against you in a condensed field in a 4th and long situation. It's because of how useless those 3 points felt. And if I was going to fail with my best player at the very end of my season, at least I'm pinning Syracuse back where if they want to throw, they're near their own goal line. And so I'd prefer to try and stop them back there than having them have better field position and getting those 3 points. Those 3 points did nothing for me.
I get the logic. It's one of those things that I don't even feel really strong about what happened. I don't think it really had any say in the game. I'm not a big fan of any opportunity that you have to make a one-score game, you take it.
This is what I would tell you based on what was going on in the second half of that game. I'm not even looking for a successfully executed play there. I'd like my chances better of getting a holding call or a pass interference, given how many of those there were in the second half that convert a first down, than to have the 3 points.
I get it, but I think that second half showed me, okay, we go to overtime. We still lose this game. We're not going to get the stop. We're going to keep blitzing.
Why can't I move
safety.
you off the position, though, when you say they would have had a shot this year? Why can I not? Why are you being so stubborn about if their defense can figure it out? It's a bad defense.
But
Syracuse throws the ball well, but it's not like it was great offenses that were running over them.
This is weird because, like, I agree with you. It's not a good defense. But every counting metric that you could use outside of really deep analytics, yards per play, like, it's one of their better defenses. Historically, like, you've had defenses rank where they rank, and they are deemed championship level, especially with that offense. So it depends on the opponent. And I think once you get deeper into the college football playoff, you have teams that will pull like a Wake Forest. This is our identity. This is what we know how to do. We're going to challenge you in the A-gap. We understand that you're bad at this in tape, but a lot of teams, they're just going to maintain their offensive identity because they see a bad defense that they don't really respect anyways. And that's where Miami actually thrives because you're playing more to Miami's strengths. If you focus on where Miami is weak, they have shown you the entire season. They can't stop it. Dating back to the Virginia Tech game where Virginia Tech was forcing them to make tackles in the flats. If you isolate their secondary and you try to make them make plays, they are not going to make plays. If you motion out the running back and Kiko Mauanoa follows them into motion, it's an automatic chunk play. That's been the book all season long. It's what's going to cost them the CFP. It's a damn shame because Miami is right there in terms of teams that deserve to be in this tournament. You can make an argument. Yeah, I'm with Lucy. I think ultimately she'll be right. Those two SEC teams, either Alabama or SC, are probably going to get in. Then Miami, I'm sorry, you're like the 13th best team this year. They're only letting 12 in there. It's a good season and a major disappointment because that offense, that quarterback, I believe in this year of parity, had a shot. Certainly, I would love to see them in the CFP. You're telling me Cam Ward goes to South Bend, Indiana? Bring it on. Let's see. I feel good about my chances because I like my quarterback, but they're not going to get that chance. They're not going to win against this SEC propaganda machine, and they blew it. It was all there for them. They blew it.
The defensive metrics are fine, but that's the criticism of Mario Cristobal that I think is fair, Mike. You can't use body of work. It's got to be game to game. And in that game, in that moment, when you have given up 42 points in 3 quarters to Syracuse, and you have the best quarterback in the country, the guy you wanted, you got him out of the portal, he needs a first down. He needs a first down to get you to the playoffs. They're on the 10-yard line, and he decides to kick a field goal. That is a terrible job by Mario Cristobal. Terrible.
I think you can get on Mario about a lot. Ultimately, those concerns are always going to be there about Mario. I think he's done pretty well this season in addressing some of those time management issues that plagued him the first 2 years here. Ultimately, you want to build a program that has a talent advantage that it doesn't have to come down to those margins.
You mentioned Notre Dame. They end their game with a couple of 99 and 100-yard pick sixes against USC. You mentioned Travis Hunter. Can you explain this to me with Deion Sanders? Travis Hunter is a betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, but the trophy for Thorpe Award, the best cornerback in the country, he is not nominated for. And so this is what Deion Sanders has to say about that.
Something that just transpired and they brought to my attention today that Travis is a finalist for the Walter Camp Player of the Year, Maxwell Player of the Year, Bednarik Defense Player of the Year, Blitnikoff Best Receiver, regardless of position, and was snubbed by the Thorpe. How? How is Travis Hunter snubbed by the Jim Thorpe Award? You can have my award, you can have it back. Matter of fact, I'm going to give him mine. I ain't using it. Just sit up there collecting dust. So Travis could have my Thorpe Award because if this ain't the most idiotic thing in college football, that he's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, and he is, I would say arguably, but I don't think it's really an argument about this young man being the best defensive back in college football.
Few things. One, we're going to see that Jim Thorpe Award in a KFC commercial in 2 months. I felt the exact same way when 2 years ago they did not make Iowa's punter the Ray Guy finalist award. That was probably more egregious than this. My thing with Travis Hunter is he's obviously insane. I kind of like Ashton. I think Ashton Genty should win the Heisman because his season has just been like something we've never ever seen.
His season is better than the last 3 running backs who have won the Heisman Trophy.
Absolutely, but I do understand completely why Travis Hunter is the favorite because he is playing 2 positions. I think he's a better receiver than he is a corner. So that's kind of where I see this coming from. I think Travis Hunter is going to get plenty of awards this postseason. The KFC will make up an award for him. Like, we'll see plenty of stuff happen here. I get why Dion's saying that, but I don't think he's one of the best corners in college football.
We're glossing over the fact that the head coach said, I'll give him mine. And I got to tell you, he should hold a ceremony during the Thorpe Award ceremony. Dion should have his own ceremony where he just hands his old trophy to Travis Hunter. I'd watch that. That would be great.
No, you wouldn't.
That would be great. I wouldn't watch it, but it'd be fun. It's a good idea.
Lucy's read on it is kind of the read that I've gotten from NFL folks when I've asked, like, what do you do with Travis Hunter? Because from a salary cap point of view, Travis Hunter is going to be a very interesting case study. What position does he get drafted at? That changes his salary tier. The people in the NFL that I've spoken to say they would probably only play him at receiver. And while Travis Hunter has counting numbers, he makes sensational. He certainly has a nose for the ball. You're not going to see on the highlight packages when he gets burned down the field for mistaken coverage.
He jumps higher than any cornerback in the sport.
It's crazy. Mel Kiper told me and Billy that if he entered the draft as a wide receiver, he'd be the best wide receiver in the draft. If he entered it as a cornerback, he'd be the best cornerback in the draft.
But that's not the consensus among people, and I don't know if the Thorpe people
don't get me wrong.
deciding. Many people are saying that he's too much of a gambler as a cornerback, but obviously if he was working on that as a skill set, his athletic gifts make it clear that if he focused on just being a cornerback, he would also be a very good cornerback.
Correct. All the NFL people that I spoke to about Travis Hunter's pro prospects are like, he would certainly be a good corner, especially if that's only what he's focusing on. But they think that the gulf between where he's at and the impact that he can have on a game as a receiver just far outweighs that as a DB. And you don't even want to risk Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, getting injured because Travis Hunter, the cornerback, is out there playing.
Who are these NFL people you're talking
I'm not going
to?
to give you my sources,
Kenny
dude.
Dorsey?
That's not how
I mean,
you do it.
The cons.
He really doesn't know, Stugotz, how sourcing works after all of these years in the business. Stugotz doesn't understand the concept. Not that Mike Ryan is a print journalist, but that you protect your sources.
He's not reporting anything. He's talking about scuttlebutt, things that are being discussed in NFL circles.
But if he wanted you to know the people that were saying these things, he would have named the people who were saying these things.
How about the scuttlebutt Ian Rappaport put out there? You see who the Bears have on their short list?
Who?
Cliff Kingsbury.
Get out of here.
Guys hope he's going to get another job. It's incredible.
What is scuttlebutt actually? What? I don't know what it is except in the context that we're using it, which is basically gossip, right? A synonym for gossip, sort of, or is it not? Is it more solid than gossip? Is it more factual than gossip?
It's gossip.
It's nautical. It's a slang term for gossip. It comes from the nautical term for a cask that held a ship's daily supply of fresh water.
Nice.
Okay.
I know what a cask is, but for those who don't.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do you know what a cask is? And did you know that Scuttlebutt held fresh water at Le Batard Show? Because that doesn't sound right. So it's a nautical term. Scuttlebutt is a nautical term. How do we get from holding the fresh water to holding the gossip?
The term was later applied to the drinking fountains on ships at naval installations and eventually to the rumors and gossip that surrounded them. I still don't know what any of that means.
Right.
It's like talking at the water cooler, which I actually don't really understand that reference.
So the pirates invented talking at the water cooler?
They invented yapping.
Lucy,
in an office setting, scuttlebutt is similar to the water cooler. There you go.
Bang.
Lucy, though, is of an age where people don't go to an office, never mind gather around a water cooler.
I barely come here.
Hey, people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend. Ha ha ha!
Exciting.
Wow.
It's been a minute since we did this. Let's go around the room. Mike Ryan, what do you believe was the funniest thing from the sports weekend? A lot of people would say your tears.
I'm sorry they feel that way about me. I think I've been pretty rational about this one. I'm giving them their tears. But for me, the funniest thing of the sports weekend was just I was screaming at the TV like a lot of people were at that final drive from the Chicago Bears that cost Eberflus, who then afterwards said, no, we executed. That's kind of how it was designed. That was crazy. They went 33 seconds in between plays. They had a shot at a field goal at the very least. They could have ran 3 plays, but they ran 1. They lost. It was really dumb, and it cost him his job.
Literally, that press conference, they could have just not let him talk and just fired him. But they're like, go ahead, do your press conference.
He did the morning press
did
conference.
it?
They fired him after lunch.
You're fired.
Is that a man that knows I'm getting fired and I just want to give you absolutely nothing on the way out? Like, I will not even give you the satisfaction of acknowledging that I messed up the play calling at the end of the game. Like, I know I'm done and you're not getting this. You can have my job, but you're not taking my dignity.
I don't know how to describe it, but when I saw the blurb, the Chicago Bears have hired Matt Eberflus, I knew how it was going to end. Mm-hmm. I was there's no scenario.
Just based on name.
I'm sorry,
right.
and I don't know what I'm doing there. But
it's the name.
It's Eberflus.
There's just no way this guy ends up being a success.
You got to change it. You got to change it.
You can't imagine Bill Belichick's record on someone named Eberflus.
There's just no way. Like, I saw that blurb. I'm like, oh, he's going to get fired inside a couple of seasons. This is a disaster. Look at that name.
Yeah, Eberflus. The great coaches, their last names, Belichick, Lombardi. It's got to be someone like that. There is not a great coach with a name like Eberflus anywhere. Anywhere in sports, I would say.
I think to prove your point, you'd have to pick someone that doesn't have all of the wins and just marry yourself to that name now. Because what you did was you just listed the quarterbacks with the best records.
Our coaches, yes. What I'm telling you is that right now, because Belichick isn't the most common of names, but I do think it's funny that Stugotz doesn't take into account the idea that if Lombardi had been named Eberflus, he would now be mocking someone named Lombardi for not being named Eberflus.
Teams would be playing for the Eberflus trophy.
Right. I'm torn on Ben Johnson.
What do you mean you're torn on Ben Johnson?
I don't know if it's a good name.
There's no way. Look, Ben Johnson, safe name, safe hire. Eberflus, no shot.
Let's talk for a second about the end of that game before we continue to go around the room, even though it was Thursday, because you rarely get confirmed as a fan base or a sports consumer. Yeah, I knew I was right about that guy. That was a season of great expectations for the Chicago Bears. That particular game, under other circumstances, making the adjustments to come back to look in the second half the way the Bears looked versus how they looked in the first half would be a coaching clinic on Caleb Williams' growth and looking great toward the end of that game. How bad Detroit looked at home the second half. But you screwed it up the only way that you could to get fired on the spot, which was in a situation, Stugotz. We make fun of a lot of broadcasters for getting it wrong. My God, did Nance and Romo do a good job with no timeouts and no time to gather yourself to give everyone on television watching the panic of, oh no, Jim, no. Like, they knew what was happening as it counted down, and they had the appropriate tone to it. And this is not a small thing, because Tom Brady and a whole lot of others have to learn here. At the 8-second mark, Jim Nance gave an elbow to Romo because Romo was going to start talking, and he clipped him because he's like, nope, I got to get this part right, Tony. Get out of the way. Tony was in the middle of a thought, and he clipped him because he had to.
Yeah, Brady's been accused of talking too much. It's a main criticism for him. But I think by comparison, it was a very bad week for Tom Brady because you had these isolated games where Tony Romo was really good. And considering what had happened in Greg Olson's broadcast, Olson really brought it and made people long for him. It was a very bad weekend. I think I have to capitulate on Tom Brady. I thought he was going to be a good broadcaster because who else has these stories? I wish he did a little bit more of that. But this is a kooky setup with him not meeting with teams and him just bombing in, and I'm not really sure what kind of opportunity he's going to have to get better.
Olson did such a good job communicating in a small window what I'm about to say, Stugotz, where he's warding off the criticism he's going to get by how he frames something at the end of the Vikings-Cardinals game. A great game, incidentally.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, Jesus.
At the end of that game, Olson ends up being happy for Aaron Jones, who's had a couple of tough weeks, has had trouble handling the ball and stuff.
He had some tough plays in that game.
Yes, also in that game.
Right.
And what Olson did was he said, and this is hard to do in small windows, and it's something Brady's struggling with, concise thoughts, cleanly stated in small windows. He's like, we do not root for anybody out here. We are not rooting for any of the teams. But sometimes you're allowed to be happy for people you know who are good people. And so you undercut all the criticism that's coming your way from Cardinal fans who are going to say you're rooting against our team. You're rooting. You sound too excited about what Aaron Jones just did against our team. Billy, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Dan, I'm going to go to Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, and it's just a series of – I love a snow game. Yesterday felt like football. Mm-hmm. During the game, a Bills fan decided, you know what, I'm going to do my part because the Bills, they do this thing. It's very weird where the Bills are like, you know what, why don't you come shovel all of our snow out here? Like, oh, I get to go to the game? Like, no. Just come shovel all of our snow so that, you know, the game can be playable. So I think yesterday actually offered and they paid people like $20 an hour, which if you like see the videos, it seems like there aren't very many supervisors there because everybody's just playing in the snow, throwing themselves down the chutes. Then the game starts and like, wow, the stands are still very much full of snow. So I don't know what you're paying people $20 an hour for. Granted, there's 2 feet of snow, but like seems like lots of fun is being had when we're inside the stadium cleaning up the snow. But a brave Bills fan tried to do their part in that game. It was early in the game. I believe the score was 0-0 at the time. 49ers were lining up for a kick, which is very difficult in the snow. I don't know if you're aware of, Dan. And a Bills fan, one lonely soul Bills fan said, you know what? We don't know how this game's going to go. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to throw a snowball at the football as it's going through the uprights and see if maybe I don't hit that darn football and prevent a field goal. And then we'd get in a scenario where I think we'd all learn together what happens if a fan throws a snowball and hits a football midair and the football falls. Is it just a do-over? Is that part of the elements? Like, what do we do in this scenario? Because I'm not sure that there's a rule in the rule book about snowballs hitting balls in flight. I'm sure there will be next year, though. So the one fan, funniest thing of the sports weekend, that decided to throw a snowball at the football.
Enough with the guy on Twitter who's like, you know that the snowball wouldn't have done anything to that. It's like, we got you. It's just a fun video guy.
I don't know.
This is from Danny Parkins of FS1. I also don't know what the ruling would be if a snowball did indeed change the trajectory of a kick, what the ruling on that would be. Maybe we should ask somebody. But this from Danny Parkins of FS1. The Bills lead the AFC in point differential, 134, turnover differential, plus 17, points per game, almost 30 per game, rushing touchdowns, 21, and fewest sacks allowed by any team through 12 games since 2020. It seems like a pretty important statistic when your quarterbacks are getting hurt as often as they are. Chris, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Purdue, pretty bad college football team. I could have just stopped there. Purdue. They went 1-11 this season, but I saw a fun stat. Purdue could have started every game this season with a 34-point lead, and they still would have finished 6-6.
What was the one in the 1-11 for Purdue? Who did Purdue beat? Because all I saw every time I looked up was Purdue losing 60-0.
You're wondering who has the shame of losing to Purdue this season?
Well, the teams I saw that were worse, Oklahoma State won 3 games, and watching them against Colorado, I don't understand how. The worst teams I've seen this year, and the big name schools are Purdue and FSU. But Oklahoma State was in the conversation. What I was watching...
And they did beat Arkansas. SEC just means more.
What I was watching against Colorado made me feel bad for Oklahoma State fans who have always been fine being third in that conference because They didn't win a game in that conference this year. They were 0-9 and didn't deserve to win any of the games in that conference. And I don't actually know what it looks like if one of these coaches just can't keep up with NIL, doesn't have the ability. I don't know how I could tie the two things together to say that coach there got left behind by everything that happened because so much has changed about the sport.
Well, you can see what happened with Stanford, which they don't really take on people from the portal, and they found the solution. Andrew Luck is back.
Oh, yes.
GM.
Yes.
First game of the season, Purdue beat Indiana State 49-0.
Wow.
They did fire their head coach yesterday, by the way. Ryan Walters is gone.
Andrew Luck being the general manager of Stanford football, I think all of us would say, yeah, like that, face and voice of a program. I would also ask, what are his qualifications for that particular job?
He's Andrew Luck.
He's a Stanford grad. He's smart.
Yes.
He's smart, and his dad has loads of administrative experience.
So Chris Cody, that's
getting sued by Vince McMahon.
His dad,
works hard.
His dad has administrative experience. Is Andrew Luck's qualification?
Sometimes that's all it takes, Dan.
Woj got named GM for St. Bonaventure. This is a new position.
It's a great hire.
Hold on a second. What did he go to college for? Checks. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in architectural design.
Got to be smart to do that.
Building a program.
Who would you hire? I mean,
Somebody with qualifications.
yeah, but he's not Andrew Luck.
Who's going to go work for Stanford football, though?
Somebody who has to wait in a line and do training to get one of the great jobs that there are in sports because he's trained to have that. He or she has trained to have that great job.
But again, he or she, not Andrew Luck.
Agreed.
Yep. I mean, that's the perfect hire for Stanford. It is. It's
Who
him
are
or
you
John
doing the
Elway.
Hulk Hogan like ear thing for right now? Because like we're all cool with Andrew Luck getting this job.
Yeah, what's happening?
Why do you guys think that I'm doing the opposite of the Hulk Hogan ear thing? The ear thing is because you want something heard. I'm saying something unpopular. Everyone universally applauds this, and I'm simply asking, what training does he have to be running an entire program?
Training, schmaining.
What training does any of Stanford football
Exactly.
Right.
I was just asking the question.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing.
People should pay their dues. Nah, Andrew Luck, it's fun. He'll say something crazy.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
It's good for us.
Yeah, that's
And
all
really,
that matters.
really, who cares how Stanford football goes, right? I mean, I think that's really the bottom line here. No one cares if they win or lose as long as we get Andrew Luck back.
Yeah.
During the break, Stugotz, who was saying it's good for us, runs everything through the prism of what's good for me. And during the break, he actually had a good idea, which is that the 12th team in the playoffs should be chosen by a randomly selected committee of just fans and the team they want to see in. The 12th team that the committee chooses the first 11, but a group of 30 just randomly selected fans decide who they want to see in the 12th spot.
Now, I think a lot of people would say Miami this year. I would go Colorado. So this
Florida
is a year.
State.
This is a trick. Florida State. Wow.
Bodie McBoatface.
Let him in finally.
Wow.
Lucy, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
I have a one and I have a bonus one. So my first one, a little personal bias. Iowa beat Nebraska this weekend, 13-10. They did score more points than Ohio State did. Iowa won this game while only converting 5 first downs. Nebraska had 20 first downs. Iowa had 5. Went 0 for 10 on third down conversions and won this game.
Amazing.
It's pretty cool.
Lucy Rohding, Iowa correspondent.
I believe they had 20 yards in the first half, and that was it. So it was very impressive. My bonus one is a fun little stat. Out of the 2021 Ohio State recruiting class, the only player who beat Michigan is Quinn Ewers.
Wow. I want to get back to the Ohio State and Michigan game, but Stugotz, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
For me, it was Adam Feld saving Billy's life.
Aaron?
Or Aaron. Yeah. He saved his life, Dan. It's that, or there was a new world record for the longest putt ever made. Did you see it?
I did not.
139 yards. The guy swung the putter like he was swinging a driver, and it went in the hole.
A football field and 39 yards?
Yep, 139 yards, yes. It's great. You got to watch the video.
That's like a hole-in-one on a par 3, isn't it, to do a 139-yard putt? What was the previous record because
138.
that is what I will do if I'm on a golf course.
On the fairway?
Yeah, well, just because I don't know how to hit the correct wedges and anything like that. The putter I can hit. I can always hit the putter. That is crazy. That's a crazy amount of distance to be
I
able
have
to do
played
that.
par threes that are shorter than that. We all have. If anyone's played golf, it'd be funny to see you go to a par three with a putter. I mean, Mike did it with a driver. I mean, he stuck it within 5 inches of the hole. I got 4 inches to go. I mean,
my funniest thing of the sports weekend, because I did have a smile on my face for 4 days about what I am now claiming is in contention for the funniest joke that this show has ever told in 20 years. The idea that Stugotz has not read his own best-selling book is funny enough. The idea that Random House didn't get the audio version of that book, unlike it has with every other author it has ever asked to do that, even though it was paying Stugotz to read his own book, and he still hasn't read his own book, and it's a bestseller. We cannot do better than that as a joke. StugottsBook.com is where you go if you want to get your significant other a funny gift for the holidays. And on Thursday, Stugotz, who is too big for a bookstore, bookstores are outdated, Stugotz is not, is going to be at a church near the bookstore so that all of the overflow capacity at the bookstore ends up at the church instead, worshiping our funny hero, Stugotz, who not only has not read his book, didn't do the audio version of his book, even though he was being paid essentially to read his own book.
but buy the book. It's not just me. The reason it was moved to the church was it's Greg Cody. Greg Cody and I will be out there. We'll be doing a little show together, a little Q&A, and then we'll sign some books. And so me and Greg Cody, the response was so big that Books and Books needed to move it to a church down the street. I'm excited for this. I really am. Me and Greg Cody cutting it up. A couple others.
We should give the people the information over the course of the week of where it is that you and Greg Cody will be on Thursday. Going back to the apocalypse that was the end of that Bears game, do you know how wonderfully succinct it is in a broadcasting moment for Tony Romo to say no for the second time during 3 seconds, prefaced by, Jim, no. Like just the personal, the Jim no, when there's 7 seconds left and we're all, but it's whimpered.
We're all thinking it.
I don't know. I knew that there was pity in his voice, and I didn't know whether it was for Caleb Williams or Eberflus, or just football in general for being disrespected by that clock management.
Tony Romoisms have infiltrated every aspect of my life. Should we go out to dinner with Nicole?
Jim, no.
Moana 2, 4 o'clock? Jim, which an hour?
Is there a lot of rosary bead clutching when it comes to the flag planting in the Ohio State-Michigan game? Because Ryan Day, I found myself more bothered by the general cavemanness of Ryan Day after that, matter-of-factly saying, well, we're not going to allow that in our home field. Like,
you can beat us on our home field, but you cannot plant the flag after you beat us.
But just the whole idea of here's this bad, ugly optic thing, even though we all kind of know this is emotional, this is violent, and throughout the weekend, there were times that people are fighting because there's physical stuff all over the place that escalates. And the most emotional time is right after you've lost on your home field. So I get why it is that he would be bothered by that. I'm speaking to the climate of caveman that after that loss takes a certain pride in, we wouldn't allow that. That's a bridge too far. But people talking about me being fired when I'm one of the winningest coaches there is by percentage over the last 5 years because I can't beat that team anywhere. The culture of football that surrounds some of this stupidity, which is, well, this is war for us, right? And at the end of war, what do you do when it's violence that is a real estate acquisition? What do? You plant your flag to tell everyone that you've been there, when the historic echoing thing of that isn't going to be the flag or any visuals of that flag. It's going to be what they've done to your dye job the last 4 years.
Men are so emotional. They're so emotional. Oh, my God. I'd actually like to talk about that, like just the game, everything that sort of transpired before Rose got pepper sprayed. That felt like just one of the most botched coaching jobs I have ever seen, where the entire time to me it really felt like Ohio State went in with the plan of, we are simply more talented than them. They are a bad football team. We will win. Before the game, there was no sort of feeling in the air that this could be a potential loss. Like the fans were taking it very seriously, but there was no vibe that made it seem like it had the past few years, where Michigan was a very good football team. They won the national championship last year, but it was just mind-boggling to me to lose this game when you know exactly what Michigan is going to do. They cannot throw the ball to save their life. You know they are going to run. You know you need to have a plan in place for their defense, and you have the best receiving core in the nation. And it was just so, watching, I was like, they are so unprepared for this. Will Howard played like you knew what Michigan was going to do, and you had nothing ready for it. I think that is one of the worst coaching jobs of Ryan Day's entire career, and I know that he has an insane winning percentage. 47-1 against all Big Ten teams except for Michigan. 1-4 against Michigan. Do I think he should get fired for this? No. He's a very good head coach. Every team in the country would be lucky to have him. But you're at Ohio State. That's the one game you cannot lose. That is the one thing you cannot do. It's just, the whole time, it was just, I could not wrap my brain around how this was happening.
3 touchdown
favorite.
Yeah,
3 touchdown
20 and a
favorite.
half, I think.
Yeah, and it was funny as the game was getting closer, it kept growing. No one saw this happening. Will Howard played it was so interesting to me. We watched the first half of this game up in the press box where we're looking from above, and I'm like, Michigan clearly watched film. That Will Howard interception, he threw the exact same pick at Penn State. It was so clear that Michigan was prepped and ready for this game, and Ohio State wasn't. We're going to the Big Ten championship. They had this just insane of, we are so much more talented, we are not worried about it. It's just mind-boggling how ill-prepared they were for that game.
Can you guys give me some examples just to put some context for the audience on 3 touchdown favorite? Give me some of the other games this weekend that would illustrate to people, because I know when it's Ohio State and Michigan, people expect it to be close. They're giant programs, but if you have not been paying attention, Michigan is very limited this year. So give me some other examples in the sport this weekend of teams that were a 21-point favorite, so I can explain how weird it was to watch this particular Michigan team win that game at Ohio State. And Ohio State did what it has done all season. They've got the best goal line defense in the sport by percentage, Stugotz. So they stop people on the goal line. It's how they won the Penn State game. They did it to Michigan early. I didn't expect Michigan to score very much at all in that game, and Michigan didn't score at all in that game. To watch Ohio State's offense look like that was the part that I was not getting, having watched Michigan over the course of the season and being wildly unimpressed with what that team is.
It was such a bad day all the way around for Ryan Day because you had what happened on the field. You had what happened after the game. You have video of him saying what happened to one of his players after the game. So there's a coach not knowing. And then later that night, you have Kyle McCord, or later that day, I should say, you have a quarterback that started for Ohio State last year, tear up the Miami Hurricanes, and you let that kid go. He's the leading passer in college football.
Is he not? Did he not break all of Donovan McNabb's records at Syracuse? He is somebody who holds all of the Syracuse passing records. Does he not?
I think he does. I'll look it up. But he had a tremendous year, and that guy played quarterback for Ohio State last year, and he's beating Miami, and Ohio State's quarterback is throwing interceptions and losing at home to Michigan.
I believe that was Ohio State's largest loss considering how much they were favored by since like 1998 or something. And it's just, I cannot emphasize enough. It's not that you lost to a team that you were favored to beat by 21 points. You lost to Michigan when you were favored to beat them by 21 points. This is a bad Michigan team. Washington beat this Michigan team. They were 6-5. There was a graphic before the game that Michigan had like the second lowest winning percentage after winning the national championship the year before, like in college football history. And you lost to them. The one game you could not lose, you lost.
I would say also the quarterback decision. He was trying to be delicate because he was trying to keep one of the younger freshmen on his roster. They let McCord go. McCord kind of played a lot more hurt than people knew last year, and it made him a little jumpy in the pocket, and their loss was Syracuse's gain. But I think maybe one of the bigger mistakes that Ryan Day made was I'm very familiar with what the transfer portal quarterback market was. Miami was talking to all those guys in the portal. They were talking to Will Howard. Cam Ward was there for the taking. Ohio State didn't show genuine interest in Cam Ward, and they wanted Will Howard.
This was the most expensive roster put together in college football history. And you lost to a 6-5 Michigan team at home when you were a 21-point favorite. That is bad, crazy. And I was watching like the ESPN sort of post-game coverage and their College Football Live or whatever, and Joey Galloway was like, I think the thing that's worth noting is, when I lost and we lost the game, it was never, this is the coach's fault. Ryan Day can't make their field goal kicker, make those two kicks or whatnot. But, you were a 21-point favorite. This was the one game you needed to win, and you lost. It is, I still cannot believe it. And then Rose got pepper sprayed.
We're gonna get to that in a second. We got to get to that. But I do believe that even though you're correct to emphasize again and again 21-point favorite, I believe that means less than it ever has in college football. Georgia Tech, I think, was a 17.5-point underdog.
To Georgia?
To Georgia.
Yeah, they were 19.5. It opened at 20. It got down to 17.
So you're in a situation. I know you've heard Mike around here talking about the SEC getting a reputation it deserves from the past, but not from this year. The idea that Georgia has to go 8 overtimes against a 17.5-point dog, 8 overtimes, and that Georgia would have 2 losses already and now doesn't have to play in its conference championship game. That's something broken in the way that
they're getting in, and they're getting in.
But there's something broken in the way that we're doing all of that. And that game was poorly officiated. One call goes a different way, and Georgia Tech clearly wins the game, and now Georgia's got 3 losses. That part's a little bit crazy that Georgia doesn't have to play in the conference game, was a 17.5-point favorite, needed 8 overtimes, and referee.
They are playing in the conference championship game, just to be clear. They're playing
Georgia
Texas.
plays Texas, right.
But okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was going to have to be their only path in if they lost that game. They were in regardless. But, yeah, I'm with you, and I know this is coming – it's going to sound bad coming from a Miami fan because there was a Cal targeting call and there was the Virginia Tech thing. But just one play, the tip pass that they ended up calling a DPI on. That's not a judgment call. They reviewed the targeting. It clearly caused the fumble there. He led with his head. You would think that that's called targeting. It wasn't. That's fine. Still a judgment call. What's not a judgment call is, was this ball tipped at the line of scrimmage? I kind of felt like there were so many missed calls in that game, so many calls that went for Georgia. That was a heist. That game was stolen from Georgia Tech.
No, I agree. I mean, Georgia Tech did give up a big lead, so I always kind of think that you don't want it to be in that position. But it is a rivalry game, and there were a lot of bad calls that if they had gone differently, it's very clear Georgia Tech would have won. We would never have gotten 8 overtimes, which I can't pretend I'm not happy that we got 8 overtimes because they were really fun. It was a really good time. But I talked about this on God Bless Football today. I think that we're going to have to, after this season, look and evaluate, is conference championship games, do they mean anything? Do we even want them? I know it does mean something to a school to say, I am the Big Ten champion. But I think that they're hurting the playoff and they're hurting teams more than they're helping, because you can have an amazing season, you can make it to your conference championship game, and you can lose, and it's going to bite you in the ass because now you have to play another extra game. You're not getting that extra bye. You're getting beat up. Then 2 weeks later, you have to play again. We're like, Ohio State losing to Michigan is bad, and no one is happy about that if you were an Ohio State fan. Helps them just a teeny tiny bit.
Bye week.
Yeah, they don't have to play Oregon this week, which is a very tough team to play. You've already lost. That's a physical game. And now you get extra time to prepare, and you're probably going to get a home playoff game.
I'm so happy you opened the door for this, because I think the NCAA got really lucky this year with these mega conferences and not having divisions. Just a storm. Look at all the scenarios. Texas, now that Texas A&M isn't ranked because they beat them, no ranked wins. You have a situation where Indiana can exist in one of these mega conferences and only play 3 teams with winning records. In the ACC, you have essentially 3 teams in the final week of the season gunning for a bye in the CFP. Neither of them played each other during the regular season. You have to institute some divisions, and I wouldn't be surprised if ultimately the solution is you have multiple divisions inside these conferences, and you actually have a semi and then a final. Because all too often we're looking at and trying to compare these resumes, and these teams are in their gigantic conferences, and they're not actually playing the teams they're in contention with.
I think something that's interesting to look at is going into this weekend, the Big 12 had 9 teams that were still mathematically alive to make the Big 12 championship game. Going into the last week of the season, 9 teams were still alive. I miss divisions a lot, and I know that I'm saying that as someone who benefited from playing in a very, very bad division. Bring back Legends and Leaders, by the way. That was so funny, and it was so cool, and I miss it a lot. But, I totally see what Mike is saying, and I think that's going to be the case. You're going to have, what I think is going to happen is you're going to have little quads within these mega conferences that are going to look exactly like what the old conferences looks like.
The other thing that's happening here, Stugotz, and I know no one cares about what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. But when Mike says, and now we'll need a semifinal before the final, perhaps to alleviate some of this, the amount of games that you're making these people play.
I know.
Yeah, but it's not an extra game. You're actually whittling down their conference schedule because you're in a division of 4, and where you'll get pushback from the coaches now I have 2 opponents that I don't have an ability to really prepare for because I don't get my schedule before the year. I see it as really the only logical solution, because you had way too many instances here, and they got lucky this year. It could have been really bad, where you have all these teams all bunched up. They're supposed to be in these power conferences where they play one another, and they don't. Texas and Indiana really showed you can get really lucky if your schedule's decent.
Look specifically at Indiana versus Ohio State. Indiana had to play Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State had to play Oregon, Indiana, Michigan, and Penn State. It just happened to work out either, however you want to phrase it, either for Ohio State because they got a tougher schedule, or against Ohio State because they got a tougher schedule. I know that they got rid of divisions specifically because of Iowa and the Big Ten West, and I get it. That's fair, and I completely understand it. But in that case, you're now opening it up for everything to be the Big Ten West. We're oh, sorry, your schedule just worked out that you're playing Purdue, Northwestern, and Illinois instead of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
The Georgia Tech game was ridiculous. I don't want to do the show, Dan, where we change the overtime rules, but what they were playing at the very end of that game was not football. What I want to change about overtime is, why do we have to go to the opposite side of the field for each new overtime?
It's
Thank
so
you.
embarrassing.
Can't we just stay put?
Well, I have a babysitter, and I'm losing 90 seconds every time they're walking down these sides of the field.
It's got to feel so embarrassing to do the little walk and everybody's just watching you walk all over there. I said this, I think it has the same energy of riding around on a bird scooter. You're just ugh, this is so embarrassing. Or walking back when you've just rolled in bowling. You're this is embarrassing. Everybody's looking at me.
We just showed a putt that is twice as long as this walk that is making Mike pay his babysitter overtime.
No, just stay on the same side, and the next team gets the ball first. We get it.
It's a good point. All right, finally, too late in the show, Lucy. Take us through what happened to you and our beloved Rose, where it is she got pepper sprayed because she thinks that Meadowlark Media needs a war photographer.
Okay, well, Rose was just doing her job, and she's done nothing wrong ever in history, except for sometimes she doesn't set her alarm, so we almost missed our flight. That's wrong. But she doesn't do that as much anymore. So by the end of the game, so we were down on the field, and towards the end of the fourth quarter, I think we all realized Michigan was going to win. So we had a game plan in place. Rose, follow the Michigan football team, go into the field for all the post-game stuff, and then we're going to run right out of the stadium and try to talk to sad Ohio State fans. That was the primary goal. So as the game ends, Rose follows the Michigan team over to the Michigan band and the cheerleaders and stuff, and that's where they get the flag, and they run back to the middle of the field. Rose follows. Harry and I are 10 yards behind her. So we're Harry and I are a little backed up. Rose is right on the outside of the action. In some of the videos, you can see her. You're oh, yay, good for you, Rose. But then she got pepper sprayed, so it's not a happy ending. And so we're standing there, and a Michigan player runs up to us and starts throwing up. And I'm oh, my God. Guess it was a tough game. Guess it was, it's really cold outside. And so I just didn't assume that someone got pepper sprayed because we're watching the fights happen. We saw people get tackled. We saw student assistants on the ground with 3 cops holding them down. It was crazy. And then another Michigan player runs up and he's sobbing uncontrollably. Harry starts to feel the pepper spray. I didn't feel it. So he's let's go. We run. We look back. Rose is on the ground. And I'm so sorry. I'm just going to be honest. I started laughing because we are close friends. It was funny, okay? And then we went and checked on her. We ran back, went into the line of action to make sure our dear Rose was okay. And all the Michigan players really helped her out. They gave her their towels, and they had medics come. She was okay. She got pepper sprayed in one eye. A state trooper came and helped her. Not one who did the pepper spray, but someone else.
Let me play for people some of the sound here and video of you and Rose. I don't know if this has pepper spray in it, but we'll see.
All right, little check-in. As you may know, I got pepper spray, but now I'm fine. I do not recommend getting pepper spray. It hurts. But I'm fine. Thank you for asking, everybody. I'm a survivor. La, 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 la. Yeah, good luck, pepper spray, bringing her down.
So they were in the middle of people throwing up and crying, something you might actually see in a war. If it were an actual, just...
That was me watching Syracuse, Miami.
Vomiting, crying, and pepper spray.
We do have a video of her yelling as she's getting pepper sprayed.
Where is that?
Oh, that's
It's actually a little bit funny.
That's the shot.
Where is
that?
I'll send it.
Is it embargoed?
Get that. Get it immediately.
Who's embargoing this?
Why are we waiting? How is it taking this long?
Rose was pepper sprayed. I can't believe Rose got pepper sprayed. It's not funny. I just laugh in uncomfortable situations. Hey, Dan, it's cold. And we're at the Ohio State-Michigan game. And I can't feel my toes.
It's colder than a witch's titty in a brass bra.
Okay. It's been a while since you've beat the team up north. How have the last few years been?
They cheated.
Not good. They're not good.
A cupcake win.
That's a great
Cupcake win.
Cupcake.
So they probably could put me on the field, and I think I could probably throw 45 touchdowns.
Michigan.
Get rid of that whole state. That'd be good.
Top 5 of the worst things ever.
Michigan. Let's go Michigan and Michigan.
Did you guys see where Ryan Day said that losing to Michigan, the only thing worse was when he lost his father?
It's a big game, but that is kind of crazy to say. I'm not gonna lie.
Would you say losing to Michigan is equivalent of facing the death of someone close to you then?
Absolutely.
The fact that they're 6-5 and they think that they deserve to have me out here watching them get their ass beat.
Did they cheat?
Yeah, I think so. Connor Stallions. That guy. He cheated. I saw it. He told me himself, actually.
Okay, so what should the punishment be? You guys get to choose.
Public execution.
So you all know that Rose comes with me every week. We also have a producer. His name is Harry. He went to Michigan. He's gone. They took him a long time ago. We put an air tag on him, so I'm sure we'll find him later. But We haven't seen Harry in hours. Do you guys have anything y'all want to say to my producer, Harry, over here?
Harry, we love him. He said he went to Michigan, though. That was probably not the best thing to tell us right away. Him and Connor Stallion's public execution.
What do you guys feel about Michigan fans? Are they nice? How
Idiots.
my producer, Harry?
Harry. How we doing, Harry?
Okay, do we like Harry?
Yellow hat. No, he has a yellow hat.
With that
and
hat,
I can see the
think
thing
he
underneath.
may
He's
be
a Michigan fan.
a closet Michigan fan.
Over. This interview's over. Talking about idiots, didn't we?
Harry's fired.
Idiots.
Go Blue.
Do you have a favorite person on the show?
Definitely Dan.
It feels like a lazy answer.
Speaking of lazy answers, Stugotz, period, is the lazy answer. Like, so do you think Dak Prescott could be the answer for the Cowboys? And I want to shout out Dan Le Batard. Did I say it wrong? Shout out Dan. Shout out Dan.
My face because I'm in shock. It's so cold. Big Ten, we're the best conference in the world. All right, so Ohio State fans have been very nice. I have a feeling that's going to change. So, not so fun note, after the game, Michigan went to plant the flag in the Ohio State field, and all the Ohio State players started fighting with the Michigan players. I've never seen anything like it in my life. The cops showed up, pepper sprayed everyone, including Rose. Rose pepper sprayed. She's doing all right. I don't think she's going to want to come back to Ohio State anytime soon, but she is okay. Rose, can we get a wellness check?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much for asking.
What would make you feel better?
A raise.
I have to get through this without laughing because I seem like Rose was pepper sprayed. It's so funny. I can't stop laughing. I can't believe Rose got pepper sprayed. It's not funny. I just laugh in uncomfortable situations. I will say, ton of respect for the Michigan football players when Rose got pepper sprayed. It's crazy to say. They all came over to help her.
Dan, I'm sorry. Lucy wanted to do some interviews, but
If you don't watch Ohio State next season, most likely with a new head coach, you can download the Game Time app and use code Lucy for $20 off your first order. Terms apply. What time is it? It's game time. College football is best, except for the time that Rose got pepper sprayed.
Lucy, you are laughing at your own material there. You are gazing at how amusing you are, and no one in the world has found a pepper spraying funnier than you found this pepper spraying. You can't stop laughing at Rose. You're covering something very seriously and can't stop laughing during the serious coverage.
Okay, one, that's my coping mechanism. When my parents got divorced, that was the funniest conversation of my life, okay? I couldn't stop laughing. There is a video that has been deleted. However, when we saw that Rose was on the ground, Harry was filming, and I did not realize that Rose had gotten pepper sprayed, and he panned the camera to me, and I'm just pointing at her and laughing. She's on the ground, I'm just pointing at her and laughing.
Now, wait a minute.
I told Harry you have to delete the video. That's the worst I've ever looked ever.
I want to examine your coping mechanism.
And Rose's scream that she got pepper sprayed.
All right, wait a minute. That sounds like someone stepped on a duck. A goose. That someone absolutely stepped. That is absolutely the sound of someone stepping on a goose. One of the bigger birds, maybe a swan. They're unusually aggressive. Give me the whole context for the whole video. What happened here? Not just the sound. Give me the whole sound so that I know what happened before a honking Rose got...
She's okay, by the way, we think. She's not here, so we don't know.
That's why we're laughing.
Let me hear from a honking Rose.
There's chaos and.
I don't think we can laugh
So
at
good.
Lucy, I don't think you can laugh at this. This is
Okay, so after I laughed and pointed at Rose, I said, "Hey, are you okay?" She said, "Am I blind?" And Harry said, "No, you're not blind." And she said, "Oh, okay, then I'm good." Which, like, we don't know. We couldn't have really confirmed that she wasn't blind at the time, but we were just like, "Yeah, you're not blind." And then I gave her my scarf. I said, "Use this to get the pepper spray out of your eyes," as I was laughing at her. And I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry I'm laughing at you. If I got pepper sprayed, would you laugh at me?" And she said yes, so then everything was even. And it was just so funny. And then we went to the press box, and Rose was like crying laughing. Or it may have been the pepper spray. I don't know.
It may have still been the
It may have
pepper
been the
spray.
pepper
What you guys are describing, like I really do enjoy the idea of you're horribly uncomfortable. A riot has broken out, and a national riot has broke out around the game. Lucy, uncomfortable in this environment, with men running past her, both crying and vomiting because they've been pepper sprayed, deals with uncomfortable moments with the laughing mechanism that is all coping, and then you're just pointing silently because your friend is on the ground, and you're actually scared, but you're masking it because this is how you felt when your parents got divorced.
I gotta be honest, it was more funny than I was scared. Like, objectively, it's still really funny. I'm no longer scared, and Rose getting pepper sprayed is like one of the funniest
But
things that's ever.
you're telling me it's a genuine response
No,
that you
that's
have to uncomfortable, to discomfort in social settings that involve fighting or conflict or whatever, just discomfort,
Yeah.
you laugh.
Sadness is funny, and it makes me laugh. My therapist said this is a normal response. My mom did not speak to me for like a week when our dog died, and I couldn't stop laughing because that's just how I deal with this. I thought that was going to be a funnier sort of bit. Nobody laughed. Now I feel
Well, it's
really
odd.
bad.
It's a dog dying. It's a dog
No,
dying.
it's a very. I talked to Nina about it, and she was like, "That's a pretty normal coping mechanism." But this was just straight up funny.
We've got a quote here from, and I know you want more of this with your sports, SEC Commissioner I'm sorry, he's not SEC Commissioner. Greg Sankey is whatever the hell the name of that conference is now, Big Ten.
He's moved on?
Greg Sankey says, quote, if you want...
What's going on here?
If you want to plant a flag, play capture the flag, or you join the military, or you fly to the moon. We've got a pissed off Greg Sankey.
By the way, we're trying to plant these flags in turf. You can't do it. What are we doing? Why are we planting flags at the Big House or Ohio Stadium?
Stugotz has said the two smartest things today. Let's go, college overtime. Just do it in the same end zone. We don't need you walking up and down the field. And also, he's totally right on this. You can't. The flag would not be planted. Not because Ohio State wouldn't allow it, not because Ryan Day is mad, just because that's not how turf works.
Also, we didn't even acknowledge Kirby Smart calling a timeout during every overtime. That was so annoying. We need to get rid of the timeouts, too.
Dabo Swinney has chimed in. The fun police. Not a good look for the sport, he says.
Oh, wow. Either is that dye job, Dabo.
Yeah, well said.
The Ryan Day dye job is the most egregious in the sport, correct?
Shut your mouth. That's our king.
Yeah.
He is the king of the dye job, right?
We asked him about it, and he flat out denied it on God Bless Football. Like, he said, no, that is not a dye job. And we've asked other people who have seen him at food courts, and they've said, no, it looks very real.
Mm-hmm.
At food courts?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, at food courts. Yeah.
I sat next to Urban Meyer at the gate at the Columbus airport when I was leaving. He didn't seem very happy.
Does he ever?
No, but he seemed especially unhappy. iPad guy, by the way.
I've seen a couple videos where he seems happy.
Yeah, one or two.
That's a bit of an invasion of privacy, it feels like.
Flying
to
commercial.
Give
Upset.
the iPad guy to Urban Meyer when he didn't authorize you as a reporter to give out that information.
I didn't look on his screen. I just saw he was using an iPad. Yeah. And I'll say he didn't use it like my dad. It was like close enough. He wasn't doing this thing.
Did he have a stylus, the pen to write on it, or no?
No, it seemed like he was just watching stuff. And then he put his sunglasses on inside. And I said, whoa, big time.
Is anyone saying lose with class with the same intensity that they're saying win with class when they start assigning blame to bad optics on this? And they tell Michigan to behave in a in a way that's more sportsmanlike, and also Ohio State to lose in a way that's more sportsmanlike. When people are going to talk about bad look for the sport, I don't actually think that Stugotz and Billy are in the majority in saying that, beat them, and you will get rid of all the fighting and all the flag planting. I think we all understand that if the emotions of this escalate, it can end up in a very malice at the palace type of place, people swinging helmets. You don't want to keep throwing lighter fluid over what is already like a cauldron. It's 100,000. Stugotz, what this game is, okay, never mind the rivalry of it, what this game is between recruits who have been fighting each other to get to these two schools because, let's just say, it matters to some of the people when you get into these brainwashed sort of cults that are college campuses, and beating Michigan is the most important thing, and beating Ohio State is the most important thing, and Ryan Day can win all the pressurized game, but he keeps losing that one, and I'm going to say, died his job. Go ahead, it's going to die. Like, I'm going to fire that guy even though he wins all the time. So at the center of the field, where it's physical violence all game and emotions, of course that's going to be lighter fluid to allow that to escalate anywhere beyond where it already is. But the idea that the histrionics of this could escalate to this place because of the stupidity of what it is that we're talking about after the game instead of before the game, which is just celebrate how it is that you like on an empty field that people are leaving. You don't have to get insulted and indignant on the way off the field because somebody's doing something at midfield to a midfield that you couldn't protect during the game.
That's the problem. They stayed on the field. They were looking for the lighter fluid. They were looking for something to get upset about instead of being upset about the fact that they just lost to an inferior Michigan team.
Also while upset.
Well, Dan, you know what? There's emotion on both sides. That game is like Michigan's national championship game this year. It's like that every single year when those two teams play. And so they beat an Ohio State team they had no business beating on the road in their stadium, and they wanted to plant a flag afterwards to celebrate. And you know what? I'm good with that because there's emotion on both sides of this. There's emotion to winning and there's emotion to losing. But if you lose, get off the field.
The action is symbolic but also redundant. Michigan had already planted that flag in the most humiliating of ways because in that cauldron of 100,000 people stunned and sad because of what Michigan just did on its field, when those people get their regional identity politics from what's at the middle of that. That whole thing is a furnace. Like, the whole thing is ripe for something going off the rails because somebody gets emotional.
So for context, Ohio State was on the field singing their alma mater, which a lot of schools do. But I think something that we keep overlooking is that these are 18 and 19-year-old boys, and I've never met a smart or rational one of those in my life.
Well, but I'm adding to that all the other stuff that I said. It's yes, you're
I mean,
correct.
Cam McCormick's also lurking around there. There are some 24-year-old boys. I get the larger point. Look, I've gone to plenty of games over in England, and it's kind of a joy suck. I like that here in the United States. I can go to the Game Time app. I can wear a Canes jersey. It's at my own peril, but I could sit next to someone at Doak Campbell Stadium who's wearing a Seminoles jersey, and I'm allowed that right. I'm not afforded that right over in England. I have to go through my own entrance. I can't be wearing the color of my team to support. Why? Because it got out of hand in the 80s and 90s. Violence got ratcheted up. And look, I understand. You don't want it? Win. I get it. But it's unsportsmanlike. There are rules against it. It's not something that you see in the professional ranks because it can spiral out of control. You're asking people to check their emotions in a very physically and emotionally draining game.
Billy's
That's
rolling
not
his
how
eyes
emotions
at you.
work.
Not rolling my eyes at him, but it's just kind of like, you need to control your emotions because I'm not able to control my emotions. So you better not plant a flag because I'm not going to be able to control me going over and punching you in the head. So you're really to blame because I decided to punch you in the head.
But why is it the only place where it's allowed? In all of athletics, name me another example where taunting like this after a game is allowed, because I'm telling you, if it happened in the pros, you'd have grown-ass men resorting to violence. You'd have fans customers coming onto the field.
It did happen in the pros. Terrell Owens did it.
And it caused a
pros.
problem.
It's not the pros. These are amateurs. These are children. They're very young.
So protect them from their bad decision making.
But they're not pros. So I think it's weird to hold them to the standard of you need to be more mature.
I mean, the Ohio State roster is making $20 million.
They are pros.
But they're not old. They're young. They're 18, 19. Hell, there are 17-year-olds out on that field. Like, they are not professional athletes. I think, if anything, I was on the Michigan side of that ordeal, but from what I heard and what I saw, Ryan Day didn't, do a lot. That's who we should be upset with. Also, we should be more upset with the cops for pepper spraying.
That's true.
That's the top thing we should be mad about.
Forgive me. I haven't come down on the kids doing it. The action of it, I think we need to protect ourselves from this situation unfolding. And the conferences have been totally fine when we put together our highlight packages of Baker Mayfield planting a flag and hyping up those aspects. Oh, it's bad when these two teams get together. And everyone feels that, yeah, mix it up. We like all that stuff because we're fed it. It feeds to what we like about this very physical sport. But I do think you need to put some things in place to prevent things from spiraling out of control, because this was a very ugly weekend for the sport.
Interesting, because I disagree that ugly is bad for that sport. I disagree that us caring this much about the aftermath instead of what happened in the game is good for the sport. Us being fascinated that the violence can escalate to a tipping point that might scare you a little bit. I don't know if you've seen the video of McCaffrey's calf giving in a game that Fred Warner is playing with a fractured ankle. For weeks, Fred Warner is playing with a fractured ankle. I don't have any earthly idea how that's done. What we're watching that we're throwing kids into the maw of is the 100,000 people watching the gladiator spectacle on show us your violence, show us your ego, show us your pride. Let's fight one school against the other in the biggest rivalry that any of us in this region will know in our lifetimes, passed down from our parents and our grandparents, because this stadium fills 100,000 people to watch you be more violent than them, better at the violence than they are. Like, that whole thing ends up symbolically with a flag planted because many of the participants think of it as war. Like, they use all of those war analogies because of what they're giving their bodies to.
But what are you fighting to protect? This is a very recent trend. This is not something that is passed down from generation. Baker Mayfield did this, and everyone now is clout chasing for the social media clip. I love college football, and I love that it feels a little dangerous and it has more passion, and it's the closest thing that we have to European football in this country. What I'm saying is protect it by instituting just some small rules, because you're going to have a situation that is going to get so out of hand that you're going to lose it, and we may get to a day where you're not allowed to wear the opposing team's color, and you may get to a day where you have your own designated entrance, and you may get to a day where they decide no more alcohol sales. I've been to those soccer games. It's not fun for the neutral.
So what would the rule be? What would the punishment be? Because they did fine both schools $100,000. I don't.
Which is not enough, by the way. I mean, that's not going to stop them from doing
it. All the money should go to
Rose.
I think it's very plausible to say after a game is over, the coaches shake hands, but the teams go to the locker rooms and have your celebration in the opposing locker room and do whatever you want. Just don't get collateral damage involved. Don't have it a situation where fans are running onto the field and you're hell-bent on planting this flag or doing something disrespectful when the emotions are super high.
I do believe, I might be wrong on this, that Ohio State and Michigan's locker rooms are on the same side. So even then, you're running through this. And you have a situation at the Big House where you saw this a few years ago with Michigan and Michigan State. There's one entrance to both of those locker rooms, and you have to go in that way together. I think logistically there are just issues that you're going to come up with. I agree with what you're saying. I just don't know what the punishment and the order would be.
Can I just stop you for a second? Because I will say, I don't want to say it's a feature, not a bug, but I want to remind you about how you sound right now, even while fearing a Malice in the Palace type of video where the sport gets harmed by the idea that the violence can't be policed and then all the rules have to change much swifter and more of them change because you have to react to an action as opposed to leading and getting ahead of the day that people are swinging helmets and it can get really bad. When Judd Apatow saw everybody was talking about a certain thing and Chris Rock gets slapped, everyone mocked him for saying he could have died. He could have died. And what's the show sounds like right now is fearing the very real potential of where it is something like that can end up where somebody can really get hurt. But I ask you again, like, what do you think we're doing all week getting to that game? It's like we're making these two groups of people that are going to collide get to a heightened place where dumb testosterone-soaked kids are going to do dumb shit in front of each other because they just won in front of 100,000 silent people, and that's the best feeling in the world.
Right, but we don't see that in combat sports, and we very rarely see it in the NFL. And when shit gets real in the NFL, like Myles Garrett swinging a helmet, everybody wants to change everything and chastise it. You've gotten kind of lucky with all these field storming incidents. With this most recent weekend, I think everyone can see a scenario in which this can spiral out of control. I understand it's a logistical challenge. I also don't think we can't make a solution to wrangle teams and say, you stay in this quadrant while we let the other team in. They already do. Good. They already do that.
Well, it's great coming from a Canes fan.
Well, I'm not. I understand.
We kind of started it.
But we did.
Yeah.
I'll wear that.
Well, Mike.
I'll wear that, but I can also.
We has never done as much lifting as Stugotz saying that he's responsible for UM swagger.
I'll take it.
The 80s Canes did that, but I can also be from it, be amused by it in a documentary, and understand why there were rules made specifically against them.
Rose was pepper sprayed, and we have to take that very seriously. Oh, no. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Oh, no, this loudmouth. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an NBA champion. He's a 10-time All-Star. He is Paul Pierce, and he's here looking for Ruiz. He's looking for...
Where is Ruiz at, man?
Ruiz is in the back row. I don't think we have talked about the...
Put that book down, Ruiz.
He's reading The Pride of a Lion right now by Greg Cody. You're
not reading about that loss to the Toronto Raptors last night?
We have not talked much Miami Heat this season. We did not talk at all about them losing at home to Milwaukee without Antetokounmpo. And here comes Paul Pierce with the most
to remind us
the most overwhelming team in the league, the reigning champion. But we have the fortunate timing of getting him right after Cleveland dragged your ass.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. We're not even worried. We missing two of our premier players, and we just giving some experience to the other guys. You know, this is you gotta understand. The Celtics are every team's biggest game of the year. So, you know, once we understand that, when we go on the road and back-to-backs and all of that and accept that, they'll be fine.
Paul, this team's better than yours.
I don't know. We don't know. It's damn close. I ain't gonna lie. This team is really good. Really good. But I will tell you this. Our team, I don't know. We learned, we knew how to break teams mentally. So, you know, what we lacked in skill versus them, we had with will. So
wait a minute. This is cloaked in some stuff. Are you saying that this, I want you to state it clearly, and I don't want to get you aggregated here, but you're saying that you guys are tougher, and the way that you would win is not being more skilled, by breaking the will of players who are not as tough as you?
Absolutely. We're going to turn it into a bar fight. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We this ain't going to be no finesse dancing on the ring. This is going to be body blow.
Right. So you're going to break Al Horford's will, huh?
I think KG has a good reputation of doing things like that.
Whose will would you break?
Listen, when you start getting guys in foul trouble in the first quarter and then they foul, I mean, it's just like, listen, I've known to break a few wills, you know, sent some of them from Cleveland to Miami, you know, so.
You didn't really.
I don't know.
You really didn't answer my question, though. You know what? What do you mean you don't know? You're not allowed to say I don't know to that. You can say that's a question. It's leading. It's unfair. You can do all those things. It can't be I don't know.
No, I didn't say I don't know. I said I've been known to break a few wills.
But who? And I asked you whose will would you go after on this team that you're saying you're not sure that they would beat you, even though they're more suited to the modern game than you guys are?
Are you talking about the current Boston team? Whose will would I go after?
Yes.
All of them. All of them.
This is a really
on,
short book. I mean, I found a book that was more mailed in than Stugotz is.
Thank you.
I'm doing a
dog,
bit.
listen,
I'm doing
we're
a
not
bit, and
buying
I
that
read
book.
half of it.
Listen, you just like LeBron. You've been on that same page for the last 3 days.
Actually, I'm down for the LeBron shots.
Look, never turned up. It's still on page 1.
What can you tell us, Paul, about the future of the Miami Heat that you play tonight? Because I said last year that the window had been closed before the season was even played. That Boston, in architecture, had gone much further, deeper than Miami was, just in what their roster is: younger, better, stronger, faster.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Miami right now is, and the beautiful thing about the NBA, every team is one trade away. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam on the roster and Terry Rozier. I mean, you got some talented guys, and every team is one trade away. I think they're missing a piece because you got the coaching, you got the culture, and really haven't been known to be a great regular season team, but for some reason been great in the playoffs. So I would never count Miami out based on the history over the last 4 or 5 years. And so the problem with them is just probably staying healthy, the health of Bam and Jimmy Butler.
You wouldn't count
I've been
them
hearing
out.
a lot of trade rumors down there that, I don't know if Roddy is going to re-sign Jimmy and maybe Jimmy wants to go somewhere else. I don't know, man. It seems like everything is the sky is falling in Miami. I don't know what's going on. You guys give me the forecast.
Wait a minute. Are you getting any credible sources telling you that, or is this just nonsense gossip, or is it somebody
Nope.
telling you that makes you feel like you know something that's going on in Miami?
Hey, listen. I know the streets when the streets be talking, and I know. Hey, word on the streets, if things ain't too sunny down there in Miami. I don't know.
I don't know what that means. I still don't think you answered my question. How credible are your sources? Are you in the news-making business right now by trying to be a newsbreaker, or are you just telling me
news-making business? And I'm not sure Jimmy is going to be there by the end of the year.
All right, Dan, allow me to handle this. Who are you talking to? Name the sources.
I thought you were going to say the streets be talking. I thought that's what you were going to.
The streets are code for somebody, and I want to know who that somebody is.
Word on the street.
I want to put.
Listen, that's the name of word on the streets is. I can't tell you more. I can't tell you less.
It's a bull report. It gives me no proof that you've talked. It gives me no proof that you've talked to anybody. There are no words on those streets. I feel like it's just not. You're an agent of chaos, and you're trying to cause division in Miami. You're not reporting shit. Let's put up on the screen and let's let him look at. Here it is. Your nemesis, Dwayne Wade, and his statue, Paul Pierce. Give me your thoughts here.
No. Listen, first of all, shout out to Dwayne Wade for having a statue, because that's truly an honor, because not many players have a statue in the NBA. He's well deserving of it. He built the culture to what it is today. But I thought it looked like they gave him too much facial hair based on the picture that you showed next to it. And he always kept a low cut. So it feels like the statue was in between his rookie year and his final year. But nonetheless, well-deserving Dwayne Wade. Ultimate respect, man. But you listen, he was part of the process. He approved it. So we all live with it.
I am very disappointed by the grace you have shown here. I am.
It's Wade.
Listen, this is the perception you guys have to understand. I don't have beef with LeBron. I don't have beef with D-Wade. We just sometimes fire shots back and forth, friendly fire.
Ray Allen, there is some beef with. You texted Tony Allen that he looks more like the Dwayne Wade statue than Dwayne Wade.
Well, listen, I'm not the only one that thought that. So don't blame me. So other people said, some people thought it was Lawrence Fishburne. I don't know.
You're just being very gentle, and you're showing the proper respect, and I don't know what to do with it, because I can't Ruiz, I can't tell you how disappointed I am that Paul Pierce, the ultimate troll, is now too disrespecting of the Miami Heat to even engage them in verbal back and forth.
That's because he knows his statue would be him in a wheelchair shitting himself.
Oh, come on. Come on.
What happened there, Paul?
Come on.
Look, hold on, look, that's Tony Allen. Is that Tony Allen? Oh my God.
I love you, Paul.
That would be a good statue. Your I love you is the most insincere thing I've ever heard in a lifetime of insincerity. I will tell everybody who's listening that you can subscribe to KG Certified on YouTube for the Truth Lounge, as well as Ticket and the Truth, his show with Kevin Garnett. Kevin holds on to the rivalries of the day in a way that I find charming from a stubborn old man. I love that he's just totally unreasonable. Like, he must be this way about everything, correct?
If I listen, listen, if I say, KG, here go $1 billion I got for you, he'd be like, no, fuck out of here, right? Everything is no initially. Everything. Until it starts sinking in. But very stubborn about everything. Like, you wouldn't even believe it. Like, you could be the most, like, KG, hey, I just got this private jet for you. No, I don't need it. And then he'll think about it like, oh, okay, thanks. Like.
So it's just contrarian, just disagreeable at the very start because he wants the sparks right at the start of whatever it is we're doing.
At the start of everything. It's no to everything. KG, your newborn is here. Would you like to kiss her? No. Like KG. Like, come on, bro. And then he think about it. No, literally, it's like that with everything.
Do you remember during your playing days with him as a teammate coming back to the locker room and being like, he is crazy. I love him. He's my teammate. I'll fight with him everywhere. But this is nuts. Like, the way he gets about some of this stuff, it's not sane.
No, it's passionate. What we call insane and nuts to everyone else, I call it passion. You know, what we call different, I call it I call it love. It's his way of loving. Because if you ever around him, and I promise you, every teammate, like, he's the best storyteller. He sits there, he takes all the guys under his wings. Like just to know him off the court, is totally something different that you see on the court or interviews and things of that nature. It's like the complete opposite. And I know it'll be hard to believe because of the passion and the energy, but he's always energetic. You know, he probably wake up and say, he probably wake up and yawn, anything's possible. He probably do that on the wake up.
That's annoying.
I mean,
that's annoying. That's the days that you were hungover rolling in to practice. That's annoying.
Right.
You know, that guy's nobody wants to be around that guy all the time. You can love him, and that's not the energy level to greet the way that you were spending some NBA nights.
Definitely not. I'll go hide in the steam room. I'll go hide in the steam room.
Can you tell us who you regard as the greatest challenger to the Celtics this year? The most reasonable challenger?
The most reasonable challenger, man, bro. In the East or the West?
Well, you've counted and beat out, right? So
I've counted Sixers out.
So start with the East.
I don't see.
Yeah,
I don't see how they recover. The Eastern Conference is weird, but I'm gonna have to say. I'm gonna have to probably say the Knicks. I'm gonna say the Knicks. I like Cleveland. And everything, you know, it looks good, and they won. They beat them the other day, but that's obviously without Derek White and without Jaylen Brown. So I think with those two guys, it's not even close. I think the Knicks can challenge the Celtics. Could probably push them to 5 games, maybe.
And out west.
And out west, OKC. Man, are you seeing what's going on out west? OKC. Houston Rockets and Memphis is in the top 3, all the young teams. And it just feels like all the older teams are sliding. They get out to a great start. They're all just sliding back to the pack. And then I don't know what happened with Minnesota or Dallas. Dallas is coming along a little more, but like it just seems like these young teams is taking over the league right now, and it's a new guard in town for the Western Conference. But you can't count out Joker either.
I'm going to let you go on this one. When people complain about ratings being down in the NBA, they give an assortment of different reasons for it. Do you have one theory above all others?
It's not one thing. I think our stars are aging, our superstars. I think international players are taking over, and I think there's a lack from that newer American star waiting to emerge. I said it was Jason Tatum, and then maybe it's the style of play. When you see games, I was watching a game the other day, and I saw like 6 threes get put up back and forth both ways. And maybe it's just early in the season because football too. Once football is over, people start paying attention. Or maybe it's just the Celtics are so dominant.
All right, we got to go. Good seeing you. Good seeing you, Paul Pierce. That's the thing has run its course.
He had the Knicks pushing them to a 5th game.
We are done here. Thank you. Yes. They'll win one game. Look at him, still laughing on his way out the door. Only thing more annoying than the Celtics winning is the Celtics knowing that they're going to win. See you later, Pierce.
All right, guys.
See you, Paul.
Peace.
We went super sportsy today, and I still don't feel like we talked about all of the football stuff that probably you guys wanted to talk about. We didn't talk about the Bengals, and Joe Burrow is just having amazing statistics and going 0-3. Like 107 points the last 3 games, more than 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, 0-3.
4-8.
We didn't talk about Russell Wilson having like the second best game of his life and Pittsburgh winning a game the way that you didn't think Pittsburgh could win games, which is outscoring Joe Burrow at his best. So that part's confusing. We had a lot of football somehow that we didn't get to because we were so busy talking about college kids planting a flag.
Yeah, all the things we didn't cover on this show, they're on God Bless Football. But the thing we want to know is how'd you do in the Listener League?
Ooh, yeah. This is the big week. How'd you do? I noticed we didn't cover that yet either. But here we
how
are.
did I do? You tell me.
This is the Listener League presented by Smirnoff. Go to dkng.co/Smirnoff, presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Please tell you. I don't know your username. How would I know how you did?
Okay.
It's not I am Dan Le Batard. If it was that, I would know for sure. I'll tell you how I did. Thank you for
I asked
asking.
you guys to do it for me.
Well, no, that's not how that works.
You can't auto-draft this
do it
either,
for
right?
you.
Yeah.
We can't do it for you. Come
several
on.
security measures in place. I'm
Exactly
not going
right.
to pretend to be you.
Actually, you know what? What's your social? I could do it for you. What's your social? And then we're going to need
What's,
some banking
your mother's
info.
maiden name?
You set that up. And then, that's a whole thing. How did I do? Great question, Dan. Finished 75th. Oh, just out of the money. Now, Thomas, as you may know as Mr. Hockey from Ice Ice Baby, he finished in the money this week. I believe he finished in 20th place, so he was very excited about that situation. Money's just there for the taking. I had a good strategy this week, and I actually have a good strategy for next week that I think I'm going to implement because my good strategy for this week wasn't quite good enough. Now, it's not my fault. Players were getting injured. That's always the situation. When Cooper Kupp does nothing for you, what are you supposed to do? I believed in Cooper Kupp. He did nothing for me. Baker got hurt, and then he wasn't hurt. He came back in. He played, but did have a great fantasy performance for me. Again, you can compete against us. dkng.co/Smirnoff. 75th place, Dan. I'm headed in the right direction.
I will figure out how to get signed up next week. I asked you guys to handle that for me this week, you and Cynthia.
Security
and so,
measures.
Yeah, security. That's a Cynthia thing. I'm not here to defraud the people.
No, but I want to actually play with the listeners.
Like
but I was asking you to get me started. Well, it doesn't sound like you helped me do what I needed to do.
You want him to build
there.
an account, right?
I just no. All I wanted is it made easy for someone who was requesting help, and Billy is incapable of that.
No, that's not true.
An entire career. I've watched it grow over the years.
Cynthia said she was going to handle it, so that's Cynthia's handling situation. You know what I mean? Plus, I'm compromised. I can't. Yeah, confetti's falling. They're celebrating my 75th place finish. I can't pick a team for you and pick my own team. Then what are we supposed to do? But then you'll accuse me of sabotage, and I would never sabotage.
You mentioned the Bengals, Dan. Teams are 79-7 when scoring at least 30 points this year. The Bengals have 4 of those losses. They're going to waste Joe Burrow's career.
Mike Ryan,
you could have been better.
Did you just have that's what he's saying after the game. He says, I've got to be better. I've always got to be better.
How much better?
I feel so much pressure.
He made mistakes in that one.
Did you just catch, Mike Ryan, a piece of confetti that is still in our ceiling from the Peacock announcement that we had joined Peacock?
I think that's what that's from.
So not finishing 75th.
So there are a number of things that I still wanted to get to, Stugotz, that I did not.
Right.
Mike Evans made the greatest catch I've ever seen. There's one of those every weekend. Every single weekend, there's the greatest
Strange
catch
player.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, he caught a ball with one hand that I don't think most human beings can grab a football that's being thrown that hard with one hand in the position as close as he was to being out of bounds. And every weekend I'm seeing 5 of these plays all over the place. The Colts going for 2. I've wanted this all my life. You guys saw it, right? Nobody cares because it's Colts Patriots. But at the end of the game, not just going for 2, but doing what Miami wouldn't do. Yep, Richardson's our guy. We're just giving him the ball. You all know this, right? Everybody knows this. The announcers are saying, they're all saying, yes, this is just going to be Richardson. They're going to put their whole future in. He can get 3 yards. We trust him to get 3 yards.
I would have killed for it to be from the 3-yard line like like they had it. But my main takeaway from that game is I went into that game like, this game sucks.
Yeah.
There's no way this game's going to be good.
It was great.
Thankfully, the red zone will never show it.
Yeah.
Both those quarterbacks, different ways to get there, but they're showing you a little something. Drake May, that's a sweet spot for the Patriots. You think you have your quarterback and you're not having a good season? He's good.
Yeah, it's a great loss.
He is averaging more yards per rush than Michael Vick did when he broke the record for average yards per rush from a quarterback. Did you guys know? I did not know this until yesterday. It was one of the many things that I learned that Tony Sperano Jr. is the offensive line coach for the Colts. And it just made me think, God, it has to be funny to grow up as a kid and just want to be an offensive line coach because your dad was one and just follow him into the family business.
It makes me smile.
I'm going to be anonymous the rest of my life. Or maybe the Dolphins are high on me and everyone will think they're crazy, but I'm just going to go it as an offensive line coach. And he looks exactly like you would imagine Tony Sperano's kid looks, which is like Tony Sperano looked when he was the offensive line coach a million years ago.
Yeah, you have Don Shula's grandson DCing at the knee of Sean McVay, so he'll obviously get a head coaching job soon. Gary Kubiak's son is coaching in there. Chris, do you think this is merit-based?
They work hard, all of them. Damn good.
Shula, good coaching name, right? Eberflus, not so much. Kubiak, not really. Bryce Young,
Super Bowl winning champion. I think I have to play the result which
you do, yes. We left out Bryce Young, huh?
What about him?
In terms of young quarterbacks that are emerging on the scene.
You guys mentioned grandparents, grandchildren, and people getting old or nepotism in general. I did not know until yesterday that the adult diaper, unless I have this wrong, unless I was watching the commercial wrong, is not called Depends. The company is called Depend. It is not plural. And the only reason I know this is because I'm like, are you shitting me? Emmitt Smith?
Well,
yes, I did that on purpose. Yes. Are you shitting me? Emmitt Smith is doing Depend ads? It
doesn't sound right.
It wasn't for diapers. I don't know that Emmitt Smith's agent or he would go in on diapers. It was Depend other products, but I knew neither of these things. I knew neither that it's Depend, not Depends. What did you guys think? Did you guys not think that the company was called Depends?
I've always heard Depends.
Yeah, what's going on here? Are you in the market or?
I'm just watching a commercial for Emmitt Smith.
Your algorithm guy, yeah, huh?
And you guys tell me, are you guys not feeling that the way I'm feeling that? It's Emmitt Smith.
What exactly are you feeling?
Emmitt Smith is doing commercials for a company that does adult diapers.
Why are you watching it so closely?